What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Game Over Greggy show. I'm one of your hosts, Greg Miller, alongside the producer/shaducer, Nick Scarpino.
Hello, all.
Shaducer. Why did I say it like that?
Shaducer.
You always say skosh, so I think I'm just trying to do that.
Okay.
Also, I just think I got a dumb fat tongue that doesn't know where to go anymore.
It's like we're going to have to make a new shirt for that. The producer/shoeducer.
Shoeducer? What's a shoeducer? Anyways, that's the pure one, Tim Gettys.
Hi, let Tim host.
Pride of Long Island, Colin Moriarty.
That's it.
Hoot?
Hoop.
All right. It was like a hut. Like
Yeah, sports
hut,
thing.
hut, hut, hey.
Hoop.
And then over here, the man, the myth, the legend, Gary Whitta.
Hello, Greg.
Hello.
Gary
Yeah,
Whitta.
there we go. Thank you for coming.
I'm very glad to be
I'm
here.
glad the restraining order from when I touched your knee on Up at Noon has expired.
Yeah, so literally yesterday. So finally, we're beat now. Let's not
Keep your hands to yourself, Miller.
Let's not go right back there.
Yeah, no,
it's,
right back
it's
to
amazing how many people remember that moment. Like when I said I was going on the show today, I got so many tweets going, "Oh, don't let him touch your knee." Like it became this thing.
Yeah. It became a meme right away, I remember. It was
memed, yeah.
right onto the Reddit. That was a big deal.
It was viral.
Those were the very early days of Up at Noon. People didn't know what to make of that show. And it was also... That was when we did the debut trailer for The Walking Dead, wasn't it? The Telltale game?
Yeah, the first time I came on,
Yeah.
I think I had brought the trailer with
Yeah.
me.
And that was like one of the biggest Up at Noon episodes we ever did.
Yeah, it was huge.
Because we lied to everybody and said you're going to get to see the gameplay for the first time. And there was like 2 seconds in the trailer of gameplay, and I'm like, that's true!
we
That
didn't
counts!
lie.
Count
Yeah.
it! What are you going to do, Internet? Gary,
Yes.
I love you. I'm glad you're here. Thank you for coming in. And
Thank
gracing
you.
us
I
with
want to
your presence.
support your new venture here. I'm
thank
very
you.
excited about what you guys are doing.
Oh, we are too. It's going pretty well so far.
Yeah.
I'm
So
probably.
far, so
I imagine.
good.
I feel like you've had Veronica Belmont and Felicia Danville. I feel like I'm actually your least auspicious guest that you've
now,
had.
I think it's
no,
just going
No, we had
no,
Sean
I think it's going
Finnegan,
up.
so...
That's true.
That was a
No
long
one knows
time
who
ago.
it is.
No, if people for some reason missed that Up and Noon, don't know who you are.
so much.
You used to work in the video game industry like us. You're a video game journalist like us.
Yeah, since 1988. I started back in like the just at the time like the 8-bit world was transitioning into the 16-bit world.
Right, you were breaking Genesis stories.
No, growing up in the UK, it was more about the Commodore 64 and the Amiga for me.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I mean, I was definitely in that kind of Sega Mega Drive, of course, era. And then went on to edit PC Gamer and did that for a while. That's what brought me to the US. And I was, a video game journalist for about 12 years, from 88 to around 2000, something like that.
Then you realize there's no money in that. You abandon ship. You just decide on a whim one weekend on a cocktail napkin, you write this screenplay for the Book of Eli. Takes off. Denzel Washington's next to you, sees the screenplay, and is like, I'm in. You seem like a good guy.
That is a somewhat truncated version of events, but you've got the basic gist of it.
And that was it. And then you're off to the races. You got After Earth. Then you're doing the standalone Star Wars. You wrote that script, that first draft.
Yes.
And then now you have this book, Abomination. There it is.
Yes. It's almost pointless showing that because that's not anything like what the actual cover of the book will be like.
a cool cover,
though.
But I appreciate you doing that. Like you've already, I love the fact that you have got like the talk show host genes. Like,
I did it for a long time, Gary.
You know to plug the book. You know to hold up the product.
Yeah.
Can't
say the name of the guy I say every week, but I got the book plugs down.
In your defense, this is the first time you screwed it up. That and when we were really tired at Kevin Smith's house.
I didn't
messed
screw it up.
then.
I just put it in reverse order.
I mean,
that's not a technical.
Is the movie
problem.
called Hard Die? No, it's Die Hard, Greg. You got to get it right.
We're gonna bug you about your entire career, Gary. But Abomination right now, it's you wrote this book.
Yes.
It's up on inkshares.com right now.
Inkshares.com is where you can go order it right now.
And that's like Kickstarter.
It's
kind of like Patreon.
it's a little bit like Kickstarter for books in
Okay.
that people can go to that website. Whether you be a reader or an author, if you've got an idea for a book, you can put up a proposal on the website, much like you do with Kickstarter.
Yeah.
And you say, this is the book that I want to write or have written. And people can decide if they want to read that book. And if so, much like with Kickstarter, you can back it and say, yeah, okay. With Inkshares, it's a little simpler. You just decide, I will order this book. And
Okay.
I'm a little bit cheap. I'll get an ebook. That's fine. Or maybe I'll buy a hardcover version. Or maybe I want to get the super luxury version where you actually get your name in the book. But there's different, little
Sure.
packages.
There's tiers and stuff. Yeah.
And if you hit again, exactly like Kickstarter, they have a goal. And if you hit your crowdfunding goal, then Inkshares will print and publish and distribute the book. So, it's another tier, I think, in this whole wave of whether it be Kickstarter or Indiegogo or Patreon. People are just able to kind of get rid of the gatekeepers that usually stand between people that make things and people that want to read and watch and listen to things are kind of going away, because in this internet age now you can just talk directly to an audience, say, would you like to read this? And they can say yes or no. And we had an incredible story with Abomination in that we put it up on the site yesterday, And typically, Inkshares has a 45-day window for the book to fund.
Yeah.
And we funded in 20 hours.
God,
so the book will now, we're already now going into the process of, it'll go through a final copy editing phase, and we'll do an actual cover.
So are you like their golden prince? Are you their Lady Gaga? Like, are you like the fastest?
Yes, in fact,
person
it was written into my contract that they have to refer to me as the Golden Prince.
The golden
I won't have it any other way.
That's your name on this show from now on.
So the book
I
is.
want to redo the intros.
The golden prince,
Gary Whitta.
I will finish my plug very quickly. The book is
No,
now.
please, no.
The book is now fully funded, but you can still go and get it. And I'm gonna sign. God knows why I agreed to do this. 1,000 additional
Holy Jesus.
copies. And then those copies go away.
It's going to be a long weekend.
But if you go to inkshares.com and somewhere on the front page there, you'll find Abomination. And if you like stories about monsters and Vikings and magic and sex and death and war, you will probably enjoy this book.
I like that third to last one.
That was sex.
Wait, which was the third to last? Either sex or war. I mean, either's fine.
I was making a sex joke, but I was gonna go Vikings.
High five,
Actually,
man.
just love Vikings.
Man, that was a dangerous high five because I
went
was
right
was-
into my
I did.
eyeball.
Oh, it was so
I
close
wrote
to
a little kind of. I put together a little kind of cinematic teaser poster for the book that was like all the things, like it said kind of this like magic, war, sex, Vikings, but and people saw that like they're like, wait, this book has magic, sex, Vikings. I'm definitely ordering that. And I was like, oh shit, I should have written that book. Maybe the next book will just be called Magic, Sex, Vikings.
Yeah,
'cause
that'd
who
be
wouldn't,
amazing.
Who wouldn't read that?
Is it too late to change the title right
I'm
now?
I'm thinking about it. I'm considering it.
Just put a little subtitle on it.
Yeah.
Magic
First in
sex
the
Vikings.
Magic, Sex, Vikings series. like that will
so
just
good.
be the overarching.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I could see that on HBO. I think
Magic
HBO.
Sex
Well, that
Vikings
sounds like a
trilogy.
Twilight type thing. You know?
Yeah, and you wouldn't
They
have to-
blow
the
Do
only
up.
not insult Gary Whitta.
No,
by
no,
saying
I'm
he sounds
saying
like
in
a
terms of
Twilight
hit potential. In terms of you can get the movie series there, you can write the movies, make a lot of money. This sounds like a good deal.
I'm considering it. And the great thing about putting it on HBO is you wouldn't have to tone down the sex or the Vikings. Like,
No.
you could just have all
tone
of
them
it.
up.
All of it.
The magic,
tone 'em
though,
up.
the magic might be a little toned
Well,
down.
you got to start at low on the magic
Yeah,
totem pole, so you
exactly.
get my wife to watch, and then right around the end, put a dragon in it.
Yeah, give her the
Have a
sex,
naked
give her
girl
the
with a
Vikings.
dragon buzzing around her, like born on her, and you're good to go.
All right. Enough of that. Enough of that. Gary, you're going to sign this copy.
So I brought this copy. This is what they call an advanced reader copy. This is not what will actually be in the shops. But what they do is they print a very limited number of copies that are sent out to reviewers and other what they call influencers, like people that they want to read the book and like it and try and help.
Is this what
get
you
the word
sent
out.
Naomi Kyle to get her quote on Inkshares?
Yeah, so Naomi has one of these. Felicia Day and many of the people that very kindly read the book and liked it and had nice things to say were all actually quite instrumental in the fact that it funded so quickly. I literally I have to thank Felicia personally because she wrote a very nice thing about the book and tweeted it out yesterday. And 5 minutes later, my publisher was texting me going, what just happened? Because the traffic on the website just went through the roof and there's like 5 times as many people as before ordering the book. And that's the power of Felicia Day.
Yeah, we know it.
Yep.
We know it well. I like that Felicia Day.
So,
can smell sleep.
what I have here is, like I said, this is advanced reader copy, which is great because it still has all the typos and things in it because it hasn't been properly proofread yet.
Sure.
I mean, it has a little bit, but it has to go through a proper proofread pass. Like it has the incorrect. I used some Latin in the book, and I used Google Translate for the Latin.
Nope, that's not how you do
Don't
it.
do that.
Don't.
There's a writer tip because the Latin is wrong, and someone who read it, who was a Latin scholar, said you might want to. It wasn't way off. I just had like the incorrect.
Yo, all this says
tense
is
or
dogs have legs.
Yes, it was not. It wasn't the kind of thing where you say it and someone slaps you in the face, but like it was wrong. So those things will fix, and I think there's literally only 100 of these get made. So I'll sign that, and you can put it on eBay. Do whatever you want.
No, we're going to give it away to you, one of you viewers. Sorry, not you listeners. You have to go to the YouTube page. Go to the first breakout of this week's Game Over Greggy show, the episode you should be watching right now, and then leave in the comments, hashtag touch my knee Gary. Hashtag touch my knee Gary.
And then you just
Then I'll go through and randomly
you just pick one random, it's like a lottery.
Keeps going.
Yeah.
All right, great.
He's not even going to mention the
I'm
fact
not going to bring
that he
up the
just pulled
fact
a
that I
Peter
just
Brady.
went through puberty on this show.
I've been waiting for your voice to drop for years.
happens.
Colin and I have been making out for a long time. Now I got his cold. It's all up in here. We
I don't know
cried
if I
all
know.
yesterday for Beyond. Everything's horse.
Yesterday
Oh,
was
man.
a shit show, wasn't it?
Yeah,
It was good though.
it was. Speaking of good things in books, Gregway,
Whoa.
it's time to talk about. We have a new sponsor.
We do have a new sponsor.
It's audible.com, ladies and gentlemen. You can go to audible.com/kindafunny right now to support the show and get a free audiobook of your choice. The annotations are happening right now. The link's in the description if you missed it. And we are going to recommend our first book, guys. We needed to pick one to be our recommendation for audible.com/kindafunny. Gary's book, not on audible.com yet because it's not out yet.
yeah,
That's
we'll talk
right.
about that.
One day,
It will be
Sure.
an audiobook at some point.
Okay.
Just not yet. I may insist on doing it myself. Like, the narration.
You have a good voice for that. You should.
But like, I can do a pretty good British accent.
No, but
Oh, Abomination by Gary Whitta, I do say.
all right, okay, fair enough. You sold me. that was actually uncanny.
The book we're gonna recommend is getting recommended twice for a reason. The first, it's called The First Notch. We're recommending it for number 1.
Is it about Notch?
No, that'd be helpful. That would have been a very good one. It is not. They
Okay.
They stole this title from Notch.
There could be an opportunity there though
Yeah.
to do like the Notch movie, like the same way they did the Social Network or whatever. You could do the story of Notch. Am I totally messing up your promo?
No, not at all.
Shut up, Gary.
Not at all.
No, yeah, trust me. This show is just imagine just a garbage truck on fire rolling down the street. That's every episode of the Game Over Greggy show.
So it's called The First Notch.
The First Notch is the one we're recommending. It's number 1 because it's written by R.A. Salvatore. Now, he should mean something to you for one of 2 reasons. Number 1, he killed Chewbacca with a moon in the Star Wars canon that became uncanon. That got blinked out of existence.
Yeah, that was
It
great.
happens.
Also, Colin, why also? What's number 2? Do you know?
I don't know.
He was working with 38 Studios. He was the guy who was crafting the entire story, the
Oh,
entire lore.
I went to that's true. I went to a New York Comic Con panel with him
Yep.
a long time ago, and he
Yeah,
was
yeah.
there. I totally forgot about that.
Yeah, that was the first time
I totally forgot about
Crafting
that.
lore of what?
Kingdoms of
Kingdoms of
Amalur
Amalur
Reckoning,
Reckoning.
and then
Got
the
it,
MMO Copernicus or whatever.
Yeah,
it was gonna
Project
be.
Copernicus.
Project Copernicus.
Oh wow, that's I knew that name from some like totally niche nerdy thing, and that was.
Well,
what it was.
I think the Chewbacca thing too.
He's one of those guys
Yeah.
who's written like 1 million fantasy books.
Yeah, he's a legend.
Yeah. Very well known name in fantasy literature.
So that was number 1, A and B. The second reason we're choosing this one is that it is narrated by one Felicia Day, who's a friend of the Game Over Greggy show. Gary seems to know her too.
Person.
I'm
of many
intrigued.
talents. Many
I
talents.
think
By the
I
First
may
Notch?
go to audible.com/kindafunny and get my copy of that book.
You can get any book there. A
Anything.
free
Like, it
book.
doesn't have to be that one.
Yeah.
Anything. Like I can get
Anything.
50 Shades of Grey.
I was
Sure.
gonna say we should get 50 Shades of Grey because we're going to see
Yeah,
We
it.
don't have
we gotta
time.
prep for it.
We will
before
not
the
have
book is
time.
like it's like 200. It's got pictures in it. I hear.
It does it?
I don't know. That'd
No.
be amazing.
No,
if
I
we
don't
did.
think this. I definitely don't.
This is
There's
Community
diagrams.
Tales with.
We should make the picture book version.
We should like a kid's book.
Look for our inkshares.com.
I don't know if that would sell
50
well.
Shades of Grey illustrated.
The illustrated kids book.
Wait.
It's not gonna be a kids book. Definitely
like
get
the
that
idea
out
of
of
it
there.
being a
please.
kids book,
Please
though.
get that out of there.
That's not
At
happening?
no point do we need to have the kids book.
We
Part
can't
of
do
it.
a kids book.
Nick.
Yes.
Oh, hold on. I didn't even do that. I didn't even do the whole thing.
You got to keep going.
If you didn't know, ladies and gentlemen,
Oh.
this is the Game Over Greggy show each and every week. Sometimes best five.
Damn.
been a long week.
sometimes 5 best friends gather on this table, each bringing a random topic of discussion for your amusement. If you like that, make sure you pick up the episode I'm really off. What is wrong with me,
Well,
Gary?
you got to-
What
Just
did you
like
do to
robot.
me?
I'm not seeing anything that's not normal.
Complete and total
You can get
dysfunctionality.
This is
episodes
classic
early
Miller.
each and every Friday on patreon.com/kindafunny, along with a number of other services where you give us money. But if you don't want to give us money, no big deal. The episode posts topic by topic, day by day, free on youtube.com/kindafunny before we post the entire thing on the following Friday as an MP3 and a video. Whew. Nick,
That was the
Go to
lot.
bed.
You got through it.
I get to go to bed.
Go to sleep.
You've just dismissed
You're
me.
tired.
I am very
Very tired.
very
I'm tired too.
Nick,
Yes.
what's your topic?
My topic generally comes from Twitter, from our lovely audience, but today I'm going to be a little selfish because, Gary, we have you on the show. We have actually talked about you a lot on this show, especially in
Really?
regards
It's true, yeah, we actually
especially
have.
in
I thought
regards
My
to
ears were burning
a lot.
every
all good stuff.
Tuesday
Unlike when we talk
afternoon.
about Greg behind his back. Usually when we talk about Greg, it's just how about his
it's funny how
coke
it's
habit.
always all about Greg, isn't it? Have you noticed that?
Don't get on.
I actually wanted to ask you.
It is always about Greg.
So over here, so the show. This show is called the Game Over Greggy
Game Over
show,
Greggy
right?
show,
Right.
yeah.
There's 4 of you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Sometimes 5. Around the table.
Right.
Like I often like. Was there a discussion there? Because I often feel like this is kind of like the moment in. Like I always think about this, like when they created like Bon Jovi, like when that
Yeah.
was just a bunch of guys in a garage playing and wanting to be a rock band, and they're trying to come up with the name of the band. And John Bon Jovi says, "You know what we should call the band? Bon Jovi."
Right.
Doesn't like everyone else in the band go fuck off? Like why is it named after you?
So we-
I wonder if there's a similar like there's a bunch of guys here, but it's the Game Over Greggy show. It's
Yeah.
all about Greg.
What do you got, Colin? I see you loading something up.
Cooking something.
Or like the
real.
you know what we should call it? The Dave Matthews Band. Fuck off, Dave.
the real so we wanted to do a podcast, and I came up with the idea, the format for this podcast, which was like supposed to be topical. Originally the show is designed that we wouldn't know what everyone else was saying, and like so the topic you were bringing to the show wasn't vetted at all. Eventually, early on, we were like, we should probably right before the show tell ourselves what the topics are so that we know what the hell's going on.
Yeah.
But the real
Colin would come in and be like, "Hey, there's this breaking news. I'm sure you've all read." None of us had read it.
Yeah.
He would just talk for 10 minutes and be like, "All right."
But that's the real insult, Greg, is that the format was something I invented, and you could have called it the Colin Moriarty show or the No Taxation show, but it's always got to be about Greg.
We wanted it to
Everything's
be
about
successful.
Greg. It's always about Greg.
Now-
So it's the Game Over Greggy show.
We did win one small battle. The channel used to be called youtube.com/GameOverGreggy. We got him to relent that.
Right.
That's where Kind of Funny came from, because it was basically like when you think about Greg Miller, he's kind of funny. He's kind of funny.
Yeah.
He's kind of tall,
Right.
Kind of skinny.
kind of skinny. Very skinny now because
Yeah.
he quit, as everyone knows. It's very documented.
It's the
he
same
quit
thing
Team
with
Fat
Dave
years
Matthews
ago.
Band and with Bon Jovi, is that there has to be somebody who is the spark that brings the eyes,
And that's
that makes
you.
the women cry, and that's me in this scenario. These guys were a bunch
You
of
make the women cry.
Yeah,
don't
wait,
you,
what?
Greg?
These guys were a bunch of little coconut balls floating around, and I was the maple syrup man. I'll tell you what, when I came back from VidCon and I said,
hell
let's
are
do
you
YouTube
saying?
stuff, all these guys were stuck in there. Like, you remember the Apple commercial where she throws the hammer through the screen? I was the woman throwing the hammer, and these idiots were just sitting around computer terminals like this.
Wow.
That woman was hot.
I don't even know what you're
She was
talking
good
about.
looking.
Yeah, I'm a little lost with all this, but
Can you explain it again?
I was just
I
kind of
like the
like,
part when you were maple syrup.
kind of making fun of it a little bit. I had no idea you were going to lean into it to the degree that you did.
Trust me, we'll lean into everything
This is a
on this
deep
show.
rabbit hole that
Yeah.
we've gone down.
Wow.
Let me.
We all love each
let
other.
me
the name
rein
of the
it
show
back.
works, though. The name of the show works.
We are fortunate enough to have you on the show. You are a man of many talents, obviously, and one of the cool things is every time I come in contact with you, I learn you teach me something, whether or not you know it. First time we met was we did a 24-hour live stream for Haiti relief.
I remember that, yeah.
The disaster relief for
At
Haiti.
IGN.
IG was the old offices too. It was
Yeah,
the old
the old
studio. You came
offices.
in and you were a champion there.
Shout out to Dana and Nicole. They brought him in for the podcast.
That's right.
Which the name of it escapes me. Was it a podcast or was it just Green Pixels at the time? I don't recall.
think it
But
was
Dana
Green
Jung
Pixels.
Award, Nicole Tanner. They're the ones that brought
Which
him.
was awesome.
Wait, was that before they had Girl Fight? Because
I think it was before Girl
later
Fight.
did Girl Fight, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, the time is
I'm
a little
sure.
hazy,
I'm
but
positive
you
on
make
that.
sense.
Don't
yeah.
worry about it.
But you said something really cool that kind of stuck with me. As a writer, you said, you kind of walked through the process, and we can go into that a little bit. But you said, I wanted to write. I've always wanted to write. I've always been a writer. Obviously, you wrote for various publications, and then you had, well, I don't know if it's an opportunity, but you had a break in between, publications. And you're like, I'm going to write. I'm going to give this a shot. I'm going to write. And you found that you had to write well over, I think the number you said was 7 screenplays before you actually had something. And this is paraphrasing, but you said that wasn't shit. Or that was.
You told me that cocktail napkin story in Denzel Washington.
No, you keep telling that to yourself. And I keep telling you every time, like I just did 10 minutes ago, that's not what happened, but it never seems to get through. It is an it's a fun version of the story, though.
Greg likes to believe what he likes to believe. We let him go play in the corner with the little Lincoln Logs. No, so there's not really a specific topic other than you obviously write feature films, and that is very, very, very cool. What is sort of your process now? What's changed from when you first started out, when you first got the Book of Eli off the ground and you were working with that crew, versus now? Is the process still similar?
How did you even break into any of this? That's what
Yeah, I guess we
I've
can go
always.
back and
There's
talk
always
about
been
that.
that missing link for me.
I often say that I grew up as a kid loving mostly video games and movies. Like I wasn't a very outdoorsy kid. I was.
You're in good company.
Yeah, I know. I'm feeling the vibe right now. I was a kind of pasty, wizened child.
You notice on the camera I have to cook in a little bit more skin tone so we all look tan. Otherwise,
I noticed that I actually look really good there.
Yeah, it's
like,
good.
in a
That's a
mirror.
little bit. It's not exactly what it's going to look like.
This
but
is
I
good. I may
You're
ask you
rendering
whatever it is you're doing here. I may ask you to give me the settings so I can do this at home.
Perfect.
Because I haven't looked this good in a long time. In the mirror is just a horror show.
Welcome to my world.
So, like I said, I grew up. I was kind of the wimpy, kind of a swatty, nerdy kid at school, and like got bullied a fair bit, and not. I just wasn't like the athletic. I would always pick last at sports and stuff, but I love to write and I love to doodle and love to play video games and watch movies. And I was one of the kids that my mother was always saying, "Why don't you go outside and play?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm drawing my zombie comics," and that's just what I like to do. And I hated school, hated it. I couldn't wait to get out. Partly because I got picked on. I had a tough time at school because I was kind of like I was really skinny. And B, I was kind of a wise ass. Like I talked my way into a lot of fights.
Way to avoid them.
That's a poor
And
strategy.
you can talk your way out of them as well. But I talked my way into my fair share. And I love to write, and I hated school. But the only subject I ever really enjoyed was English, and I liked to write and I liked to read. And it's at that point in your life, something is telling you that's probably where vocationally you should go, like do something that you enjoy and might also be good at. And so I left school at 15. I couldn't wait to get out, and at that point I played video games all the time. The idea of writing movies seemed just like very far away, like a very remote prospect, because Hollywood and all that is just seemed like another world entirely. Whereas the world of creating video games back in the 80s was literally like one guy in his bedroom could do it. There's a great documentary about that just came out recently called From Bedrooms to Billions, which is about the explosion of kind of the UK indie video game scene in the 1980s, and how it used to be the kind of auteur creators that have now come back around with the kind of the rise of indie gaming again. But I thought, okay, I could do that. And I bought a book on machine code, like assembly language, and I'm like, I can't do this. My brain is not wired to anything like mathematical or logical. I can't do that. I'm much more right brain. I'm good with like words and imagination and like weird things, but like not anything scientific. And so I'm never going to be a video games programmer, but maybe I could write about it. And I grew up reading a lot of the great video game magazines of the 1980s in the UK, like Zap 64 and Crash Magazine, and I wanted to be. I could be one of those guys. I could just criticize other people's work. Yeah, that's much easier.
Easy.
And so I literally sat with a typewriter and just like bashed out a bunch of kind of mock game reviews and put them in an envelope. This all sounds so archaic now, but I like wrote a bunch of video game reviews on my typewriter and put them in a nice little envelope and sent them off to various magazines. And I got a job reviewing games for Commodore User magazine in 1988, and that was the first job that I ever had. And I kind of got taken under the wing of like a couple of veteran journalists there who were very nice to me and taught me a lot of things about games and writing, and I kind of learned from them. And the idea of writing movies kind of went away because, wow, this is actually great. I've got a job for a 16-year-old kid. Having a job working on a video games magazine was just awesome. Like that was a dream come true. And that ended up turning into a whole career. I worked on various different magazines and ended up becoming the editor of PC Gamer magazine. And then they launched the American version of that in 1996, and I came out here to America to kind of just look after it for a little bit. And originally it was supposed to be a year, but I fell in love with the Bay Area and I wanted to stay here. And then I started to think, wait, I'm that much closer now. Like now Hollywood isn't so far
it's only a little drive away.
I mean, kind of technically it is still very far away, but geographically I was that much closer.
Sure, it became a reality.
And so I started writing the screenplays, and as you said, I mentioned this before, I just wrote a ton of them.
Right.
I don't learn well from like reading books or being told how to do things. I'm very much more kind of autodidactic and like just do a bunch of it until you either realize you can't do it or you start to get good at it. And so I wrote a ton of scripts, and each one was... I still have the very first script I ever wrote. It's cringe when I wrote it. It's so bad. But then each one is you kind of apply the lessons learned from the last one, and each one got slightly better until I eventually had one that I wouldn't be terribly embarrassed to show someone.
So how did you know that? Because that's a really hard thing for a writer, right? Like I forget, maybe it was I forget what movie it was, but there's a famous quote from a movie that says like it was Californication, which was a show that I liked and was obviously about a writer. It was a very Hollywoodized writer. But he turns in a manuscript and his agent goes, "Is it any good?" And he goes, "How the hell should I know? I don't know if this is good or not." How do you know, or when do you get that confidence level where you're like, I'm going to now submit this to what I assume was agencies?
That point about the Californication made is actually very well observed. And I think that's something that dogs all writers, and it's actually a very, it's kind of I think writing is kind of like it attracts damaged and twisted personalities. I think all creative pursuits to some extent do, like Greg here.
Yeah. God, he's so. If you even knew the half of it. I mean, every time I walk in,
everybody picked on me, but whose name's on the sign, motherfuckers?
I can't tell you how many times I walk into this house and he's just wearing a shirt. That's it. And you're like, Greg, we talked about this.
My creative energy comes from being pantsless.
It's so disgusting.
But it's very weird, kind of the inverted way in which the psychology of that works. In that, if you write something and feel very insecure about it and think, "Oh my god, this is terrible. It's no good. It's horrible. People are going to hate it," you might actually be onto something. Because all great writers feel that way. It doesn't matter how good you are. I discovered this. Other writers that I've spoken to all have the same thing, no matter how accomplished they are. I've spoken to Oscar-winning writers who will say to me, like, every time I open a new document to write a new screenplay, I think, this is the one where they find out that I've been a fraud all along. I just got lucky. And that's very, very common. But I think that's the instinct that keeps you honest. Is like, as long as you keep thinking the work's not good enough, you'll keep trying to make it better. When I've spoken at like writing conventions and gone to screenwriting conferences and things like that, and people come up and say, I've written a script and it's the best script ever. It's fantastic. All I need to do is find an agent. I'm secretly thinking your script probably sucks, and you're never going to make it as a writer, because having the attitude that your script is already perfect.
Some guy at home right watching this is like, no.
The first time, the first time you get notes, you're going to fall apart, dude. Because I'm telling you, I guarantee you, your script is 99% chance it's got serious issues, and you're not going to take criticism well. So it's weird. Like the less confident you are in your work, the better the chances there might actually be something there, because it's only the writers that are constantly beating themselves up and telling themselves it's not good enough it's only through that process that you actually create something decent. But if you're right, oh, this is easy, this writing's a doddle, anyone can do this, probably not great stuff that you're creating. That's been my experience.
Interesting. So when you write, what is your process? Because I know a lot of people have different things. Like some people like to do an outline, some people like to just jump right into it and see where they wind up. Oftentimes when I've noticed that when I do anything like that, I wind up on like page 2 and then I just give up. How many drafts do you write before you actually want to show it to someone?
It really depends on the project. So with the outlining thing, I kind of went back and forth. These days, what I do is I do just enough of an outline to know where I want roughly the story to go. Like for the Book of Eli, it was a 1-page outline.
Really?
And it was just literally just like 10 story beats.
Because that was a tight story. Like that was a well put together story.
What made it, I think what made that possible to achieve is the fact that there's actually very little story. Like as a story, as a plot, it has very few moving parts. Like the story-wise, it's very, very simple. There's not much happens there's a twist at the end, but apart from that, there isn't like a lot of moving parts mechanically in the story. So it was easy for me to kind of write that out as like, okay, this is the beginning, this happened, this happens. So you have enough of kind of a spine to know where you're going. Like you never write yourself into a corner like, I don't know what happens next. You do know what happens next, because you already figured that out to some extent. But I people that write like 30 or 40 page treatments and then go write the story, that may work for other people. It doesn't work for me, because I feel like writing a treatment is like the most boring thing to do. It's like all the hard work of writing a script, but without any of the fun of writing the script, because you're kind of one step removed from it. And then when you've written that, you may know every beat in your story, but when you come to actually write the script, you've kind of done all the fun, all the discovery of like, oh, this could happen. Like that's already been done.
Right.
And now you're just kind of like writing a more detailed version of the story. So where I kind of landed over the years of figuring out this process is write enough of an outline so you don't get stuck, you don't write yourself into a corner. You always basically know kind of where your true north is.
Sure.
But keep it be vague enough that you can still have the fun of discovering things actually as you're writing. So that's my answer.
That's really cool. That's awesome.
So you're finishing up at PC Gamer or whatever.
Yeah.
And then are you working on Book of Eli at the same time? Or
No. I mean, actually, that was like 10 years apart. So I finished up on PC Gamer, and then I had an opportunity to go work on a movie magazine in LA. And I thought, oh, here you go, one step closer. Like I'll actually be working
in LA,
in the movie business in LA.
People.
This is a great way for me. Yeah, you can do all of that stuff. Didn't work out that way at all. The magazine was a disaster. The company that funded it lost all its money in the .com crash. I got laid off. And then I basically was sitting around unemployed, going, well, what do I do now? And I'd always promised myself that I was going to like try to write the scripts, and I kept making excuses about not having enough time because I had a day job.
Right.
Now I have nothing but time, and enough money saved up that I could live very frugally for about a year if I just like ate out of cans and stuff. So that's what I did, and I just wrote a bunch of screenplays, and that was the period of like writing one after the other.
Right.
Each one was less shitty than the last.
I don't know if you
to the point where again, even the one that you send out, I'm like going, I don't know, maybe like the David Duchovny thing. I don't have no idea it was any good, but like there's some kind of internal spidey sense where you're like, it's not terrible,
right?
Like, and if that's and maybe that means it's actually okay. And so I sent that out.
And when you say send it out, you send it out to agencies?
Well, I sent it out to, so there are resources online. It's so much easier these days in the online world to do this stuff than it was when I was breaking in, before there was even really much of an internet. But you can find resources and lists of, agents won't read your script. If you send a script to like CAA, they will literally send it back to you unopened. They'll go, that feels like a script that we didn't ask for. They just send it back. For fear of like, you stole my scripts like 5 years down the road. So don't do that, because they won't read them.
Okay.
But you can find like management companies and production companies. There are people out there that are like actively will accept what they call unsolicited queries. Like, so you can write them a letter and say, I have a script. It's about this and this and that, and I think you'd enjoy it. And they may write back and say, okay, send us it. We'll read it. And so that's what I sent it to a bunch of management companies. And so here's an example of like how it's better to be lucky than good. I sent
That sucks. I've never been lucky.
I sent it to a management company. I sent it to a bunch, and I said, but one of these management companies, they typically they have readers, like people whose job it is to just read, because scripts are coming in like literally dozens a day from people all around the country and all around the world that want to break into screenwriting, and so they have readers, people whose job it is to read these scripts, because reading a script takes a while, and it's not necessarily a fun thing to do most of the time. And write coverage, like write a little report and say, like, we recommend that the script be read by the next person up the chain, and then that person is another kind of gatekeeper, another level in the phalanx. And typically you have to go through several levels of that before it goes to someone that can actually say, yes, we should hire this guy, or we should buy this script, or we should represent this person, or whatever. What happened with my script was it literally got put in the wrong pile. No, I'm not even kidding. So I sent in the script to this company, and they
this is Eli.
This was another movie which we're now actually doing as a comic book. I can plug that as well.
Go for it. What comic book is it?
So this first script that I wrote, maybe this isn't terrible, was called Oliver, and you'll laugh when you hear the premise, but it was basically reinventing Oliver Twist as a post-apocalyptic superhero. But it's kind of actually, trust me, it's cool.
Oliver with
That's
a
kind of
twist.
awesome.
It's Oliver with a twist.
Yeah.
And so I wrote that originally as a screenplay, and that was the first one. I thought, this could be okay. And I sent it to this management company, and instead of getting put in the pile for like the readers to take home for the weekend and decide whether or not it goes up the chain, it got put into the pile, the weekend read pile of the head of the company. So it just instantly like blew through all the red lights and just went to the head of the company. And then on that Sunday afternoon, I got a call from this guy saying, I have no idea why this script is in my pile, because it usually would have like coverage from readers or whatever saying like this script is this and that and you should read it. Like there's nothing on it, but it has your phone number on the front. And I read the script and I liked it, and I would like to represent you in your screenwriting efforts. Now, it's entirely possible that very same script could have been read by anyone along that chain who would have said no to it.
Yeah.
But
or they would have would have written coverage that wasn't flattering.
Yes,
or
by complete happenstance, it bypassed all of those people.
That's incredibly lucky.
And that's how like I said, better to be lucky than good. And so that was the first thing that I wrote, and that movie never got made. But I always wanted to tell a version of that story, so we eventually took it a couple of years ago to Image Comics with a guy called Derek Robertson, who you may know from the comic book world, is a very accomplished comic book writer, co-created Transmetropolitan with Warren Ellis, and has done a bunch of other really great stuff. Is the artist on it now. We're doing that. We're creating Oliver as a comic book that Image is going to publish later this year.
That's
Very
awesome.
nice.
So that's a nice example. I think also of like if you create something that you really love and you believe in it, it never really dies if you don't let it. Like keep plugging away. You'll find a way to get that story in front of somebody.
Do you have other stories that you're still, well, obviously you're developing probably constantly, I would imagine. Do you ever go back and look at those first screenplays that you wrote and go, it might be worth another draft?
Those are in fact so bad that they're completely unsalvageable. Oliver is the first one that you can't go back any, like before that, all of them are like, dude, don't show that to anyone. They're just of like historic interest to me to go back and go, oh my God, it's so bad. Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of, it's a very frustrating business sometimes as a screenwriter, because you write these scripts, you have these original ideas, and if they don't get made as movies, no one ever sees the story.
Right.
Part of the reason I wrote this new one as a book is I kind of felt like no one can say no to it. Like even if there's no gatekeepers in the way. Like
right.
in the world of self-publishing, like I don't even need to find a publisher. I can do what Hugh Howey or Andy Weir did, which just write a story and press publish on a website, and people will find it.
Yeah.
And maybe it finds an audience from that, but it doesn't go to waste the way that an unproduced screenplay kind of goes to waste.
And this can always become. You could always.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that too.
this.
Is like, so there's a lot of guys out there that they write the book to get it made into a movie, and now you don't necessarily need that.
Well, there are a lot of people that do that
like.
with comics as well, and I find
Right.
that very cynical. Like, I think that is kind of insulting to comics and books to say that, well, a comic and a book only exists to become a movie down the road.
Sure.
But it goes hand in hand with the kind of the prevailing wisdom in Hollywood now, which is we only want to make movies out of comic books and things that have already been kind of
Established.
validated by an
Proven
audience.
ideas,
Yeah. We don't want to take a risk. Oh, this comic book has 1 million fans. Well, we can make the movie and probably those people will show up.
Right.
As opposed to taking a risk on an original idea. With something like The Book of Eli, which is a small miracle that it got made, because it's this really violent, quite expensive film with like religion and people's heads getting chopped off and people saying fuck. Like that movie in 99% of other universes doesn't get made. We just got very, very lucky with it. And it may in fact be the one that I may have played my Joker very early there. That may be the one that I get in my entire career.
Well, I'm pretty sure your last project that you wrote on is getting made, which is good.
I'm pretty sure they're going to make the Star Wars movie.
Yes, so I
They
mean,
are in fact making it literally now.
As we
So
speak.
I think they kind of have to finish it.
So I know you can't talk much about this, but I mean, so the people out there, that the 1% of our audience that hasn't heard of you before, you just finished writing the first standalone Star Wars film.
Yes, well, at least one version of it. So basically what happened is I finished my work, you hand in your work, they say thank you very much. They actually have another writer working on it now, which is fairly standard practice in Hollywood. You need to go through various writers and rewrites to get it where it needs to be. But that's why I just came back from London where I was kind of finishing up my work on it. The whole production of the film has moved over to Pinewood now, and I handed off my work and said,
Godspeed.
I wish you the best of luck. I worked on it for about a year, and by the end of the process, I was just completely exhausted.
Just done.
It was by far the most rewarding creative thing that I ever did. Like the entire time I was working on it, the 12-year-old version of me is going,
I was going to say,
dude. But it was also completely and utterly exhausting because I was so like when it was announced, I got two types of messages on Twitter. One was congratulations, the other one was don't fuck this up.
Yeah.
And that, of course, is like, oh yeah, thanks for pointing. I really needed that. that had not occurred to me.
People care about Star Wars.
That had not occurred to me to not fuck it up.
pressure must
Thank
be
you for pointing that out. And so that kind of dogs you and stays with you, and literally would keep me up at night as I was working on it. And again, it's the same thing that keeps you honest. It's like you have to do your best work. So I worked on it for the better part of a year. Gareth Edwards, who's directing it, is by far the most talented director I've ever worked with. He's an even bigger Star Wars fan than me, which is actually kind of hard to find. But he's so into it, and I think the movie's going to be fantastic. I can't wait to see it. But you got to wait because it's a year behind Episode 7. You won't see it until like December 2016, so it's a ways off yet.
Next year.
Yeah, next year.
It's not that
That's what you can say. Next year.
I think this has all been super. Greg and I are writers, and I think that and I write all the time, and I know how hard it is, and I think that this is just instructive of a man who's much more talented than us. How he started.
Who are we
talking about you.
Okay.
Yeah. It's you.
How a person who started humbly but with incredible talent worked extremely hard to get to where he was, and I think it's inspiring because nothing bothers me as a writer more. I mean, I'm working on a project right now that is difficult, takes a lot of time, and it's hard, and nothing annoys me more than when someone says that like writing is easy, or that writing like, oh, I'm a writer, or like what it's like. Writing is so difficult, and it's humbling and cool to hear a story like this about someone who is so talented like yourself that still says like it wasn't even necessarily the talent that got me the first chance, it was the luck.
It's brutally difficult, and it is actually quite a miserable life. I mean, the successes
Go for it, kids.
The don't get me wrong, the highs are very high. Going to the Book of Eli and seeing my name on the screen at the premiere was like one of the greatest moments of my life. Standing on the set. I don't know if I've ever told this story before. One of the days I was on the set of Eli, there were one of the first scenes that they shot is there's a scene earlier in the movie where he gets confronted by these bandits under a bridge and kills them all. Yeah. And I was there the day that they shot that. It was my first day on the set. And I became Denzel was just a lovely man to me. He was super nice. Worked with him very closely on the scripts as we were writing it. And again, it was my own original idea. So this is not like a book that someone else had and you adapted it.
Right.
It's like if I'd have said no to Star Wars, ridiculous, but if I'd have said no, they would have found someone else to write it, and the film would still get made and come out. But if I hadn't had the idea for Eli, no one else has the idea, and it never gets done quite the same way. So it feels very organic to you, like you're looking at this on this massive film set, and all these people are only there because you came up with this idea and found the time to sit down and write it. And I remember we did a scene and Denzel crushed it because that's what he does, and everyone applauded, and he was in a really good mood, and he came over and he saw me sitting in what they call Video Village, where you sit and watch on the monitors, and he came over and he didn't know I was on the set that day, and he saw me and he was like, Gary, you're here. And he came over and he shook my shoulders and went, your world is coming alive. How does it feel? And I remember just thinking, this is the fucking best job you can ever have, because the character that you created is now standing there literally in front of you in the guise of an Oscar-winning actor.
On set.
You think that's fucking mad. But like for every moment like that, there are about 500 shit ones that make you wonder if it's all worth it. Particularly in film, which is is an industry that is brutally indifferent toward writers.
That's what I was wondering. Like when you go to the set and stuff, and like in Book of Eli, I guess is maybe a little bit different. Again, like you said, it's your own IP and everything else.
Yeah.
But when you go to any set, like, do people know who you are, or are they so heads down making the game, making the movie, doing props, craft services, whatever, that they're just some guy?
No,
in
it's
their way?
weird. I mean, I felt like a little bit of a gatecrasher in my own set because the movie was written, it was done, and sometimes on films, they have a writer on set working on them, which is usually not a good sign because by the time you're shooting, you should pretty much have a script.
Right.
But a lot of times that doesn't
So
happen.
for Eli, you weren't doing any rewrites during.
No, there was no
production?
need for me to be there. I was just there as a courtesy. The directors invited me to go to the set because
nice.
they knew I'd be excited to see it. So I was very, very aware of the fact that I'm the only person there who doesn't have a reason to be there. And film sets are really, really busy. Like everyone is doing something all the time.
You're just poking around the bagels.
Oh, and the
pouring a
worst thing was I
coffee.
went there the week after. Maybe not exactly a week, but it was shortly after the Christian Bale Terminator thing happened.
yeah.
Where he just went off on a tear on the
Good for
cinematographer.
you.
So I was, oh my god, that's gonna
I
happen to
forgot
me.
about that.
Like I'm gonna walk through the wrong. I'm literally gonna walk through the
gonna walk
wrong
through
door and
Danielle's-
be in the shot and
Daniel's line of
Mila
sight.
Kunis is
fucking
gonna
guy.
run in. Get out of here, you bum.
Mila is a huge Warcraft fan.
She is.
And she said, "Oh, I heard you wrote the Warcraft." And back then, it's gone through several writers since then, but I had written an earlier version of the Warcraft movie. And she was like, "Oh my god, does it have Ironforge?" And I was like, "This is Mila Kunis asking me if Ironforge is in the movie. That's fucking crazy." It was great. She's really into it.
I saw her at a BlizzCon with Macaulay
No,
Culkin.
she's super into
into
it. But she has to play in disguise because she can't be like, "Hi guys, I'm Mila Kunis." Like that would not go across well on the internet for any number of reasons.
Keela Moonis.
Yeah.
That's what my name would be.
Damn, I've played with Keela Moonis.
Yeah, I was very I'm going to walk in, I'm going to trip over someone's cable and fuck everything
The
up.
whole
and-
set's gonna go live.
Yeah, the whole thing
cost them
falls
$2
upon
million
you. They're
that
going,
day.
"Duh."
Right.
So that was like I said, that was brilliant. But for the most part, writing is a fairly miserable,
Right.
thankless drudge that just sucks all the life out of you.
It's true.
But like I said, but the peaks are so high that again the experience I had on Eli was enough to sustain me for like 5 more years
That's
of
awesome.
shit, and and not having films made and getting fired from jobs and replaced because that's the world of screenwriting where
Right.
writers are treated often very much like a kind of a disposable commodity in the same way that they're not in any other medium. It's weird.
So how did you? Maybe you can't talk about this, and don't let us kind of get you into trouble. But how did your name get thrown in the hat for Star Wars?
I can't talk about
Can't
it.
talk about that. Gotcha.
I'll come back in
Give somebody
December
a
of
dream.
2016.
And we'll talk about it.
And I'll talk about it, but I can't. I have very strict rules about what I'm allowed to say.
So it can be generalized not to be about Star Wars, but I think
Okay.
you've already touched on it in what you're talking about. It's not uncommon for someone to get hired, write a draft, and that's their contract, right? And somebody else does do it.
Yeah, I mean, I've
Because when it happened, we were all like, "Gary's leaving Star Wars,"
There-
blah! and
there's
then I was like,
literally-
"Oh wait, hold on."
There's never been a job ever in my life where at some point you don't get. I think you'd be hard to find a screenwriter that's been doing it for as long as I have who doesn't have a story about getting replaced on a film or getting rewritten by someone else. It's so common, and it's unique to screenwriting. I use the analogy sometime like if R.A. Salvatore were to write a book, and which I hear is available for free on Audible.
Audible.com/kindafunny supports the show. Get a free book.
free
What
book.
else are you doing? You're already on the internet.
So let's say he wrote a book, and his publisher said to him, "Hey, R.A." I don't know if that's what they call him.
Yo, RA!
Yo, RA!
Rah! Come here.
R.A., baby, we love the book. We've got a little bit of a problem with the third act, so you're basically gone, and we're going to bring in Patrick Rothfuss to rewrite the third act because he's the hot writer right now. That obviously seems absurd, right? That's
Right.
not something that should happen, and yet that is exactly what happens in Hollywood every single day. That's the business of the revolving door of writers. It happened to me on the Book of Eli. But Eli was weird in that I worked on that for a long time. Then they fired me and brought in another writer to work on it for a bit, and then I was rehired to come back. And that actually happens as well. That's
crazy.
That happens all the time. And I came back and then finished the movie out. So,
When you got fired from Eli, did you freak out? Of like, hey, this is my project.
No, I was very, very unhappy. Particularly, again, when it's something like Star Wars or a movie that is
Established franchise.
belongs to someone else.
Sure.
Basically, you're just happy to be there, to be invited to play in there with their toys.
For however long it lasts.
But they reserve the right to say thank you at any time because it's their property. The truth is, of course, even when it's something you originally create, once you sell it, it becomes their property as well. Like when Warner Brothers bought the Book of Eli, they now own it.
Right.
And I am now just someone with a contract to continue to write on it. Wow. And it's like I wanted to do an Eli comic book as a follow-up, as a sequel to the movie, but I can't do it because I can't get anyone to sign off on it. I don't own it. I would need to ask their permission, and they don't want to do it, so it'll never happen. So it's particularly, again, when it's Star Wars or After Earth or Warcraft or Akira or any of the movies that I've worked on where other writers have come on subsequent to me, you just kind of go, yeah, that's fair enough. Like, you used me for as long as you could, and now someone else is going to come in and do a version. But when it's your own project, when it's something that you created, that feels really weird to have it taken away from you. But that is that's the only way you're ever going to get a movie made, is if you agree to, sign over the rights and hope that you can just stay on it through to the end.
Did you feel like a badass when you got it back?
God, it was such a long time ago. I remember being very pleased because you want to see it through to the end, and you want to have
Well, especially since it was your first, right?
Well, there was one particular thing, like the other writer that worked on it actually solved some story problems that the script was having, and actually did a couple of good things that were very valuable, and we kept those. But
you had just
but
sections
they
that were
also
just question marks.
they also changed the ending in a way that I hated it. Like, I remember reading that draft and just my heart sank. Like, please don't let that be the ending of the film.
Right.
And so when I came back, I put it back the way it was, and that's the ending that they shot. And
that's good.
Yeah, but again, it's completely at the people that are writing the check decide who's going to write the movie, and it's like I said, it's weird, and it's part of the reason why I've been attracted to kind of play around with writing novels and graphic novels and things where that doesn't happen. Like, I can't be fired off of this book or rewritten by someone else, and it's kind of fun to say, Eli is great, I think, anyway. But it's partly great because it was so many other talented people came in and did amazing work. So I can take credit for the story and the writing, but for the film itself, I just take a very small piece of credit for the overall thing that you saw. With a book, it's all, the buck stops with me. So if you hate it or love it, I'll happily take all of the credit or all of the blame.
Right.
And so that's that's different to what I've been used to in film, where it's such a collaborative medium and the writer is just one small piece of a very large machine.
I read somewhere, or maybe I heard somewhere, that they generally only hire a writer for maybe two drafts before they assume the writer has nothing more to put back.
Yeah, you have. You're
typically
right? So it used to be they used to have in Hollywood what they call a two-step deal, which is you do what you call a draft and a set, which is a draft and then a rewrite, and then you're contracted to also do another rewrite. That as Hollywood has kind of tightened the screws on writers a little bit, those got turned into what they call one-step deals. So you do your draft and a set of rewrites, and then they don't have to use you anymore. They can bring someone else in if they want. So again, it's getting harder and harder for writers to stay all the way through the production of a film, because I had to meet a writer's Green Lantern hat on it, for example, but it was a lot.
Jeez. And it showed because it was a train wreck.
But surely the more writers you throw at something, the better it gets. Right?
We're hoping that with this podcast.
Just enough number of cooks is what they call it. Yes.
Sorry.
I was just, I don't know. It's just so fascinating to hear. I'm just drawing connections to where you are now as this major success to, you were saying, kind of more of a tortured childhood with being bullied and stuff like that. And I can't help but wonder if you go to the UK and you find these people that teased you when you knock on their door and you go, oh, I wrote a fucking Star Wars movie. I just wanted to let you know. I'll see you later. You remember me? My name's Gary.
I would literally send out postcards.
Yeah, my name's Gary. You might remember me. You
we don't
teased
have,
me.
we,
I wrote a fucking Star Wars movie. I just wanted to let you know that. Have a good day, and then you just walk away.
I don't know. I think that's it would be kind of graceless to do that. As much as it
Trust
appeals
me, those
to me,
people know.
Those
people remember.
I do remember that one of the kids that bullied me in school, I found him. I didn't find him. He popped up as like a suggested friend on Facebook years and years later. And that was one of the kids that used to punch me in school, and I hated him.
It was like that? Like you were legit bullied?
Well, not punched in the hard, not knocked out, but punched in the arm and kicked, and just the kid
sure.
they knocked your books out of your hand and stuff like that. And it was giving me a hard time. And I remember years and years later, he came up on Facebook. I said, I'm kind of curious to see what he's doing now. And he was like an assistant regional manager of a small bank, like half a mile from the school where we used to go. And he may well have a very happy life. But I remember thinking, yeah, I think I probably ended up doing a bit better than you. And I would never send a message going, "Ha ha, fuck you, Mr. Assistant Bank Manager."
I'm just being facetious.
But it would be nice.
I wouldn't do that either.
Do you know facetious is? Did you know that facetious is one of the only words in the English language with all the vowels in the correct order?
Holy shit.
Yeah, AEI.
That just blew my mind.
Yeah,
I
that's
can't even
interesting.
say it. I
wouldn't-
physically
Facetious?
can't say that word. Say it.
Facetious.
Facetious.
Hey, you got it.
There are
You
only
got it.
3 words in the English language that begin with the letters DW.
Dwight.
That's a proper noun.
Dwindle.
What?
Dwindle.
Dwindle is one.
Dwayne. No.
Dwarf.
Dwarf is another one.
There's 3.
Dwarves.
Damn.
Dwarf.
Don't look at me.
I was told there would be no reading questions.
While they're figuring that out, did I
We'll save it. We'll do the third one. I'll come back. I'll do the third one at the end if you haven't got it. By
sounds good.
then. All right.
You said you wrote on Akira?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I
I
worked
did
on
not know
Akira
that.
for a while. Back in 2007.
How did that come about? Are you allowed to talk about that at all?
No, yeah. I mean, at this point, it doesn't really matter. They said, "Do you want to do Akira?" And I was like, "Yeah."
Yeah.
So what happened was, I bummed around the Hollywood world for a long time, like doing little rewrites and working on small movies and things that never got made, and like doing little uncredited like there's a terrible Jason Statham Jet Li movie called War, which I wrote on, and like some of my dialogue is
that.
in that film.
As soon as you said those 2 actors, I knew Nick's
I've
all over
seen
this.
that.
film.
The
This
The best
film
part of
exists.
that was Jason Statham gave me a ride in the transporter car, which they let him keep.
What?
Yes.
That's
That was
insane.
rad.
He seems like a pretty cool guy.
But yeah, he was actually really, really nice. The film obviously didn't work out quite so well. But so I did that for a long time, and then I wrote Eli, and Eli sold, and Denzel and the whole thing. And then suddenly you realize that you kind of get called up to the major leagues where now they want to have you back and talk to you about bigger projects, and suddenly you're on lists for things that you wouldn't have been considered for before.
Right.
And Akira was when Eli sold. They have 2 lists at any given time, like in Hollywood, kind of. It's like, well, here are all the major projects that we need writers on, and here's a list of writers that are interesting to us right now. Like if you sell a script or have a big movie open or whatever, you're on that list.
Right.
And so Akira was on the list, and I was on the other list, and they said, "Do you want to do Akira?" And I was very nervous about doing it because, like, how do you do a good version of that? Like, it's really difficult.
Yeah.
But I got with the director and talked about ways to do it and think, maybe there's a way to do it. And, I'm one of these guys, like, I remember saying a lot, like, we can't fuck this up.
Yeah.
That's
another
I'm not
big
going to
one.
be the
Fans will
guy
not forgive
going
you.
around a Comic-Con for the rest of my life going, oh, there's the guy that fucked up Akira.
Yeah.
And so we came
That's a
up with
tremendous uphill
and we were
battle.
very, very, very aware of like all the possible sensitivities. Like we didn't want to do like the race bended version of it, where just everyone's suddenly American and
Right.
white, and but nor did I believe that Akira is like necessarily a Japanese only story.
Right.
If it's a story that only resonated inside Japan, it wouldn't have been successful all over the world. Clearly, people love that story no matter where you are. It's a great story. And so we thought we could do a way that we try to come up with a way that would make it accessible to a global audience, and yet at the same time kept it kind of true to the Japanese roots of it. And I think we found a way to do it. And I worked on it. I practically lived on the Warner Brothers lot for about 6 months while we were trying to write it and get it made. And it went through various drafts. And then again, they eventually said, thank you. I left, the director left. And I think Akira's been through about 4 or 5 directors and probably many more writers than that since me. And they're still figuring out a way to kind of get it made. It's very difficult.
Yeah, I'm all
film.
for them taking their time with that one.
Yeah, and they certainly are. I mean, I worked on it nearly 10 years ago, and they're still trying.
I mean,
Maybe it's a sign that you shouldn't be doing it. Not you, but that maybe they should.
Yes,
maybe
maybe
Akira
so.
doesn't need to be
Take
done.
the hint, Gary.
I mean, I would like them just to re-release the anime, and so I could see it in theaters for once. But that'd be.
It's on Blu-ray. They did a Blu-ray release of
I
it
just
not too
want to see it
long
on the
ago.
big screen. That
I
movie-
saw it on the big screen at the ICA in London, and it was fantastic.
Yeah, rub it in, Gary. Rub it in. I have a ton of questions for Gary. I don't know. I know we're running long on this segment.
Conversational show.
We could just
Okay.
split this topic into 2 anyway. Too.
That's
It's
true.
almost an hour long already.
All right.
So.
You want to do that?
Yeah, let's just do that.
Sure.
Split!
Part 2.
This is part 2 of Nick's topic, because Nick's topic is so fascinating, and Gary Whitta is so talented.
Well, I was gonna say I don't like how you just said that, because I think that there's places to split it even earlier than this, Greg. See, you aren't very organic about it.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Game Over Greggy
Jesus
show,
Christ.
part 2 of Nick's topic. Split!
Audible.com.
It's going to be weird if it's out of the blue. We have to film a pickup, and then we
So
say that.
we don't.
this
We
is
have to
a
film
this
it,
is a very
Kids will be
uninformed
lost.
question. But when you're writing a movie, are you writing the story, or are you literally writing like this guy says this and then that guy says that?
You do a little bit of both. You write, again, I think you go through a process where you write a just the story, and that can be in the form of an outline or a treatment that can be anything.
So earlier you're saying treatment. What is a treatment?
A treatment is basically by far the least fun thing that writers have to do. Like you have to write a 20 or a 30 page, very detailed summation of the story, but without actually really kind of getting into the story. It's basically like
not dialogue, right? It's like
if you ask me to say you said, for example, okay, tell me what happens in Die Hard, and you've got 20 minutes. And I just basically told you the story of Die Hard in great depth, going through it scene by scene, and then wrote that down, you would have a treatment.
That's the treatment.
But that doesn't have dialogue in it. And then you actually go away and write the script, which is, anywhere between like 100 and 120 pages. Typically, 1 page of a written screenplay equals a minute of screen time. So 120-page script turns into a 2-hour film.
So you do the treatment first then, and then from the treatment, then you would write it so that you write the dialogue, and then you also write like where everyone
Well,
is.
you typically only do a treatment if you're the kind of writer that needs that in their process, or if contractually you have to do it. Sometimes studios will demand that you write a treatment before they commence you to the level of writing the script, and they'll give you notes on the treatment. And sometimes you'll go back and forth. I've worked on projects where we worked just on the treatment for months before we actually started writing a script. But if it's just me, I prefer to do, like as I mentioned earlier, I prefer to do as little of that as possible. Just like know the basic bones of the story, and then go write the script and figure out the rest as you go.
As a man who kind of came up playing, games and writing about games, and that was your first job, and you have a deep appreciation for your video games. You're not one of these guys, that doesn't understand the medium. You understand it better than pretty much anyone. Is there, and you've written your books, you've done your films, you're going to continue to do that kind of stuff. Is there an interest in writing a game? Have you ever, or are you considering, or have you considered in the past something that hasn't been made or whatever? Or do you want to write games?
Yeah, I've done it. I mean, it's interesting. Back in the day, there wasn't really much of the idea of like being a games writer seemed kind of laughable because games didn't really have stories. I think what's interesting now.
It's like, they took the princess again. You got to go get her.
Sorry, Mario,
Shit.
the princess in another castle.
Hey, I
That's
made
about
this
as-
robot man, and these other robot mans are in trouble. Go get
all
them.
your base are belong to us. I mean, that's like as sophisticated as it used to be
Classic
back in the
video
day,
game literature.
and that was fine. But I think what's happened is video games have been through a bit of kind of a growth spurt as an art form recently, where we started to think, well, why shouldn't they tell decent stories, and why shouldn't they have kind of greater narrative ambitions? And we've seen a bunch of games over the past few years that have started to tell really interesting stories. And then once one game does it, you start to think, why isn't this other game doing it? It used to be, you remember this, anyone who's reviewed video games for many years, you kind of, I wrote so many video game reviews back in the day where it's like, well, the story is not very good, but what do you
Garbage,
expect?
but
It's a
it's
video
fun.
game. Now you'll actually get dinged for that. If your story's not very good, they'll take points off, and rightly so, because the standard's been set. Naughty
Right.
Dog and Telltale and BioWare are doing these games where you can tell good stories, and now you miss it when it's not in another game. So I've done a bunch of that work. I was a story consultant and writer on season 1 of The Walking Dead for Telltale.
You have a BAFTA for that, don't you?
Yeah, we won a BAFTA. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't get to like keep it in my house. It's like at Telltale's office.
Demand it. Or like,
But
I
we
demand that every
won
Sunday.
a BAFTA for best story and a bunch of story awards for.
Yeah.
I think actually more than any other company, maybe more than any other game, Telltale and that first season of The Walking Dead did more to kind of wake people up to the possibilities of storytelling games than any other game. I ended up doing a ton of consultancy, going to other companies after The Walking Dead was a big hit, where they would just sit me down and go like, okay, so what's the secret sauce? Like, what is it that Telltale does that people enjoy the story? Like, how do we do that? And I would just like, just give a shit about the story.
Yeah.
Like, that's
Put
not
the
a
story
big secret.
first.
Yeah, just put the story first. Kevin Bruno, who's the head of Telltale, just did an interview today where he said our only secret is literally that we don't start with game mechanics. We don't start with an idea for a particular kind of game design. We start with a story, and that's baked in. It used to be, again, whoever wrote the story was just like, oh well, Gavin, programmer number 6, doesn't have much to do today. Why does he write the story?
Right.
And now there's a need to have people who are specialists in that come in and do it. And it's been great for me in that I come from a gaming background and I've got a fairly good understanding of the mechanics of games and how people play games and where the story should fall. And now I'm also, a writer as well. So I can come in and have a fairly good understanding of how story can help a video game be more interesting. But it's still very much, we're still learning it. Like, I think video games are still very much like in the silent movie era of their evolution, where we're still kind of figuring out how to do it. It's really interesting. I did a talk about this at Disney a few months ago, where it's someone else's example, but I'm happy to steal it. Somebody pointed out that each new narrative medium, like each new form of entertainment that comes along, until it figures out like its own identity, basically just copies what came before. So, for the longest time, storytelling was stage plays, and people got on a stage, from the days of Shakespeare, and you would sit in the audience and watch these actors perform a play and tell you a story.
Right.
And then when film came along in its very earliest iteration, they basically just copied that. They would have actors on a stage, on a set, and they would put the camera essentially in the front row of the audience, and you would just watch that. Like not much editing, not much editing, just kind of a flat plane. And then they began to realize, oh wait, we can move the camera around. We can have more than we can actually put the camera behind the actors. We can cut the film and create edits and things like that. And the language of cinema began to emerge. And then nearly 100 years later, video games come along. They want to tell stories. What do? Oh, let's do an interactive movie. Again, just copying what came before.
Right.
And we went through those dark days of like CD-ROM interactive movies, which were terrible.
We'll tell them everything in cutscenes.
I still stand by Under a Killing Moon was one of the best games ever made.
So again, and again, I think that was actually the beginning of like starting to, as primitive as that was, they were starting to try and figure things out. Like, what is it about storytelling in a video game that is different than in a film, and how do we make it unique to us, and how do you use like the unique opportunities that you have for the player to actually be part of the story and influence it themselves. And that's obviously what The Walking Dead is essentially an interactive TV series where you get to play the main character and decide where the story goes. And people love that. Like, people love the power of like making moral choices and having that kind of power over the story. It's really, people are really, really into that.
Was it easier for you to sort of wrap your head around, okay, I know how to write a film because I know sort of like the formula behind that, right? Where we're dealing with still a 3-act structure, but there are certain beats that have to hit on around certain pages and this and that. Was it easier for you to walk into a project like The Walking Dead and say, okay, we're going to treat this like an episodic show, like a piece of, or an episode of TV. I can kind of wrap my head around how I'm going to tell the story, because it's different when the player actually gets to choose sort of what their dramatic beats are.
Yeah, it's vastly different, and I did in fact try that, and I got slapped down almost immediately.
Really?
Because what you will learn from the people at Telltale who have been doing this for a long time,
Like, we hate TV.
Well, it's not that they hate TV, so they understand that it can't just be that. It
Right.
can't just be a television show where you get to kind of make some choices along the way. I actually think it's by far the hardest medium to write in, not just because, again, it's kind of silent movies and we're still figuring out what to do and how to make a good story in a video game, but also because just the burden is that much harder on the story. Like, it's hard enough to write a film, which is a compelling story that keeps you interested over the course of 2 hours. Now do all of that and add the fact that the player gets to twist and turn the story and it constantly needs interaction. Like, they used to have a rule at Telltale where if the player isn't given something to do every 30 seconds, they start to get bored. They won't just sit and watch like a 2-minute cutscene. So I would pitch an idea in my naivety. So here's something that can happen, right? Lee and Clementine would do this and blah, blah, blah. It's really exciting. And then they would sit and go, yeah, what is there for the player to do?
Right. How's the player gonna... Yeah.
And I go, oh shit, well, not very much. So, okay, well,
the player can watch.
pitch that scene again, but in a way that the player gets to influence what happens. And why is it interesting for someone not just watching, but actually playing the role of the lead character.
Right.
So it's really, really hard to do that. And that's before you even get into the business of branching narratives and like, a Walking Dead episode takes about 2 hours to play. A script is about 500 pages long because, you have to, you might only see one version of the story, but we have to write every single possible permutation.
Right.
And the episode that I wrote, number 4 of season 1, at the end of it, a lot of the culmination of the choice, there's a big thing at the end where Lee has to say to the other characters in his group, who wants to come with me? Like, who's with me on this next part of the story? And every single choice that you've made at that point goes through a flowchart, and each person then tells them if they want to help him or not. And and some of those choices are like, so if Kenny were to say one thing, now another character might say something else, and it's like, I can't remember how many different, we calculated at one point how many different possible outcomes are there to this scene, and it was about 400. I mean, it's mad, and all of them have to work. Like, not one of those branches can lead to like a logical incompatibility where, well, if he said that can't be said, and you have to play test and find all of those, and it's brutal. But when it works and players get to that scene and they feel like they've experienced a version of the story that is not just the same thing everyone else saw, but is unique to them, and they have some ownership of it because they helped create it.
Right.
That's really, really satisfying for the player, and so really satisfying for us as well.
That's crazy. I can't even imagine that. I can't imagine.
Yeah, I mean, no rush to go back and do it again. It was by far the hardest thing I've ever done, and I learned an incredible amount. But yeah.
I mean, staying in that sort of staying emotionally connected to the material must be really, really, really hard when you're telling that vast of a story with that many permutations. Segueing from that.
Well, I'm not ready to segue.
No, I'm not either. I'm just have a couple more questions for Gary.
I have a question
I've gotten
about
the
this
hot seat.
before you segue out of this.
Okay, well then you ask your question.
So then,
jump on
based on that experience of how we'll get you more water because we're just going to keep quizzing you the rest of the hour.
I'll get you some more.
I warned you that this might go long because I tend
love
to
it.
talk too much.
This is our job now.
not.
We don't have day jobs.
Yeah, what are you talking about? Don't worry about it. No, this is what we want to do. This is why we invited you here. Because it was so hard, so time consuming, so many different things. Is that one of the reasons you haven't gone back to work with Telltale? Not to imply there's bad blood, but like you're so busy with the book, with the movie, with the other screenplay, with this, with After Earth, you know what I mean? Like is it just that just timing wise didn't work out?
Well, first of all, you should make allowances for the possibility that I have gone back to work with Telltale. You just
Minecraft
Wow.
story.
that was amazing.
Yeah, you like that? I'm animated.
It's. I mean, you know, I get offered the game work sometimes, and I'm a little more having seen how hard it is to work in that medium. I'm a little bit more skeptical at doing it again because it really, really will demand a lot of you.
Sure. Would you want to go back and do maybe not a Telltale game, something more like The Last of Us, where this is our story, this is how we're telling it, no branching stuff. This is what the narrative is.
I have in fact done those things, but I'm not allowed to talk about it.
That's the Inception noise, Nick.
No, I understand.
You probably didn't know
No,
it.
I
That's
heard
what you
it
do
I heard it from the
when
kitchen.
you freak out.
I understand.
Inception noise. Well, there you go then.
It's awesome. I read a report the other day. Well, it was on the Hollywood Reporter that they're trying to staff up.
That's just an article. That's not like you don't have to. Not
It's
everything
not
on the
official.
Hollywood Reporter is called a
It's not
report.
an official essay put out by the government, but they're trying to make a series that is near and dear to my heart for the longest time. My question to you is, how do we get you on it? Because
Is it
I trust you as a
Zelda?
writer.
Oh no, I know where you're going with this. You're
It's
going
a
with
small series called Robotech.
Oh,
Called what? Robotech?
Robotech, yeah. Are you familiar with this?
I actually got offered that years and years ago.
What?
And I turned it down.
What? Why would you even dare to turn that?
I'll actually tell you the story. They sent me this big Robotech box set.
Yeah,
It was
I
a
have
big
it.
blue
I have
box.
I have like there's three
and I
blue
watched them
boxes.
all. I thought this is pretty cool.
Right.
But it was a rewrite, which I hate doing.
Oh, okay.
I really don't. Again, I talked about before. I don't. Even though it's a reality of the Hollywood business, I don't love the kind of revolving door of writers, and I don't like the idea of coming in and rewriting someone else.
Yeah.
I did it early in my career, but like it's not satisfying for me. I just don't enjoy doing it. I'd much rather create something from the beginning, from whole cloth, and then have someone else come in and rewrite me, as opposed to being the other guy. You just kind of feel weird, like you're kind of dating someone else's girlfriend or something. It's really
Like you're
strange.
a pinch
It's not
hitter
that
in the
weird.
bedroom. Tim's done that
Tim
multiple times.
exclusively dates other people's
It's weird.
girlfriends.
It's weird for me.
I don't know if we call it dating. He also dates other people's wives.
But what happened was, I was like, okay, so I watched the
The
Robotech
original 33
series.
episodes, right? The
And I thought that
Macross
was pretty
saga.
cool, like robots and shit, and tech. I mean, you know, got robots and tech.
Robots. and
Put them
tech.
together.
I feel like that's cool. And they said, okay, well, it's a rewrite, and I went, ugh, okay, so I don't love doing those, but like send me the script and I'll at least look at it. And they sent me the script, and it was written by Lawrence Kasdan.
Ooh.
And
You're gonna write
I
Lawrence
literally
Kasdan.
I literally called them up and said, if you think I'm going to rewrite the guy who wrote The Empire Strikes Back, you're fucking crazy. And I turned it down.
Well, that's acceptable, I guess, for my small narrow brain to. I want them to make this, and I think honestly, I was a fan of it when I was a kid, so obviously I'm bringing that nostalgic sort of feeling to this material. But I think it could be an amazing trilogy, and I hope they do a good job with it. Apparently, they're tapping the writer of 300 to do it, to actually write a draft of it. But this has also been one of those that's been stuck in development hell for.
Well, like I
probably
said,
since
I
the
don't remember
80s.
how many years it came to me, but it was a long time ago.
Well, the show came out. I think in '86, and I think they've been trying to figure out a way to make a movie out of it since the mid '90s. So, that was the second to last question. I have one more for you, which I think I remember reading an article a while back that had your name listed amongst the people that have tried to work or tried to revamp or revitalize The Last Starfighter. Was that correct?
Yeah.
What was the deal with that?
That's something that's very near and dear to my heart. I'm a monumental fan of The Last Starfighter.
Right.
It was one of my favorite movies when I was a kid.
It's just a great
Maybe
film.
because, I grew up playing video games and I used to go to the arcades all the time. And so the idea of this story, I mean, it's a classic kind of childhood wish fulfillment, right? You play a video game and suddenly an alien comes down and says, "How would you like to play the game?"
You're
for
so
real?"
good at this game.
Yeah.
You're getting called into
I mean,
the
it's
big
like
league.
it tapped into so many
Alfredo's
great
still
things.
waiting.
I was so pissed off because I really so desperately wanted to play that game, the arcade game that's in the film.
Starfighter.
And at the
Or not
end,
Starfighter,
at the very end of the credits, it says arcade game provided by Atari. And I remember thinking, oh shit, that's a fucking real game that I can go play. So I went to the arcades back in the day when that's something that you did. You went to the arcade.
When those were places
And
that
I scoured every single arcade looking for Starfighter, and I couldn't find it anywhere. And I discovered years later in a magazine that what that credit meant was that Atari just built the dummy cabinet.
Okay, so it was based on one of their.
It wasn't
other,
a real thing, but Atari made it look like a real game,
Sure.
Yeah.
a real machine. And so I love that. I love that movie. And people kind of look at it now in like a cheesy way because it's a little bit cheesy, and the special
It was
effects.
very cheesy because it was early on in the
What
80s.
you have to remember though is I'm old enough to remember the time that came out, like the first real computer generated effects in a film. It was incredible. No one had ever seen anything like it. It's easy to look at it now, like 30 years later, and go, "Oh yeah, the special effects are kind of lazy."
Right.
But
Was that pre-Tron? No. Did Tron
I
come
don't
out
remember.
first? I think
No,
Tron
it
came
was
out
after
first.
Tron.
Yeah.
But it was the first thing that looked like really kind of amazingly computer generated.
Right.
And it's just a great story. I mean, I honestly, this is going to sound like a silly thing to say, but I honestly put it in the same category as something like Star Wars, where it's like, he's a young kid. Think about it, right? So Alex Rogan is Luke Skywalker. He's a young kid living somewhere in the middle of nowhere, feels like nothing's going to happen in his life. He dreams of like being more and doing more, but he's never going to get out of this backwoods town where he lives.
Moisture farm.
And then suddenly here comes this interesting character from far away, this enigmatic character who says, "Well, come with me on an adventure in outer space." So I'm at this point describing the story of both Star Wars and The Last Starfighter. And he goes and has this amazing adventure and saves the galaxy. Like, all the great stories come from the same basic ingredients.
Right.
And Starfighter, I think, has those ingredients. And just as a kid, like, there's a great video on YouTube called The Spielberg Face. I don't know if you've ever seen this.
No.
Every classic era Spielberg film has it. E.T. has it. Raiders of the Lost Ark has it. At some point, there's a moment where the character just goes like this. Because there's something happening that is so
Something that just
amazing.
wows him, right.
You're just awed. And there's usually bright lights on his face, and there's usually his hair's being blown back. And that's that moment of capturing that moment of like childhood wonder that every Spielberg movie has. And Starfighter had that for me. I just thought it was magical. And so years and years later,
Right.
every time screenwriters get together and talk, the story comes up. Last Starfighter, how the fuck are we going to do it? And every single screenwriter desperately, I guarantee you, if that went out tomorrow, Warner Brothers or whoever now has the rights to The Last Starfighter, wants to remake it, and it's going out as what they call an OWA, an open writing assignment, which means the writers are just invited to come in and pitch their idea
Right.
and try to get the job. I guarantee you, every fucking screenwriter in Hollywood would be lying around the block. They all want to do it. Because we all the kids of my generation love that movie. We so desperately want to do a new version to inspire kids today in the same way that we were inspired by it when we in the 1980s. But the rights are just tied up in so much impossible red tape. I've heard a million stories. Spielberg's tried to do it.
Right.
Seth Rogen has tried to make a movie, and none of them have gotten anywhere. And so I don't know what the deal is with the rights, but they're just stuck in a box somewhere that no one can open. And it's incredibly frustrating to everyone because we all want to do it.
I actually had an opportunity to speak with the creator randomly after E3 one time through this weird sort of turn of events, and I know that he specifically was looking more to turn it into a video game than he was to
That would be great too.
to turn it into a live action. I think he wanted
in
to
the
go,
video game, are you making movies? And then an alien comes down and he's like, "You are the best at making movies. Come make movies and save the galaxy."
I don't know that it had gone through any sort of development. That's an interesting take on it. And if I ever meet the gentleman,
I'd kind of like to see like the
Pitch it.
reverse. I'd kind of see the reverse version of it, where you're like this intrepid space pilot, and you're in wars every day. Like, it's fucking exhausting. I have to go out and fight in wars every day. And then someone comes along and says, "How would you like to go live on a trailer park and just play the video game?" Like basically just the backwards
It's
version.
the opposite
of it.
version.
Yeah.
You get a hot girlfriend and then some guys with trucks.
The
And that's it.
the
That's all you
lazy
got.
Last Starfighter.
That'd be amazing. We should do a short on that. You're just
second
chilling
to
by a
last
lake and
Starfighter.
someone's like, "Hey, did you see that explosion in the sky?"
No,
You're
I
like,
just,
don't give a shit.
I desperately want to do it, but so trust me, that's like a get in line type situation.
Yeah.
Someone out there has the rights and doesn't want to do it, and they've had money thrown at them. They've had trust me, every studio wants to do it.
I like how he's like, "That's a get in line situation." The guy who wrote a standalone Star Wars movie.
no, I know. I mean, but it is right. I mean, it's sad. It is one of those movies that sadly sort of slipped through the cracks from the 80s.
Sure.
That begged to be a mega franchise.
Yeah, because I think, I'm really, really cynical about remakes. I think, they have to be, you have to do them for the right reason. And
Well, would your take on it be a remake, or would you do just a sequel to it?
honestly, I won't allow myself to think about it too much because I'll just get depressed.
Right.
But I think Starfighter is one of those ones where it's old enough now. It's a great story, and I think kids today should see a story like that. But it's old enough now that if you put it in front of like a 12-year-old today, they would probably find it very dated.
Sure.
Like it looks very 80s. They're like, what's wrong with these visual effects? Like, what is that done on an Amiga? Like, what is that?
Yeah, they can do that on their iPhone now.
I think it actually was done on Amiga.
It might have been.
So I think if you can take a story like that and kind of keep the values and keep what was magical about it and just represent it in a way that a modern audience would accept, then that has value.
Interesting.
True.
All right. And
All
that
right.
is all the questions I have for Mr. Gary Whitta.
Nick Scarpino, film buff. Colin,
Yes.
what's your topic?
I think we would be stupid not to take advantage of this awesome situation we have right now with Gary Whitta, Mr. Gary Whitta sitting
touch his
amongst
knees?
us to touch his knees.
Don't
of
touch
course.
his knees. We told
You
him
can
not to
actually
touch
touch
anyone's knees.
Well, Greg is actually touching my knee at
Well,
this moment.
then we
That
have to
never
stop.
actually
We have
happened.
to stop.
Now, it
You
wasn't-
can leave now.
After all of that, it wasn't really worth it, was it?
What are you talking about? It was worth it.
It wasn't for me.
Came back, we had fun.
I'm glad you got something.
First time we did it, we were just two ships in the night, and look at us now, lovers.
What the hell does that mean?
I don't know either. It's about as close to when. Didn't he go into a diatribe about we were caramel moths caught in caramel?
Caramel moths.
What was it?
No,
we were just
I like
coconut nuts caught in the moth cloth. What the hell are you
Close
talking
enough.
about?
The hell is
All
everyone
right,
talking
what's
about?
your topic?
So we have Mr. Gary Whitta here, one of the few people in the entire world. Then this is the crazy thing. One of the few people in the entire world that has ever written what will now be a canon Star Wars movie.
Yeah.
And this is an incredible thing, right? We are all in some way, shape, or form, I think, a Star Wars fan. I'm a huge Star Wars fan, and that must be such a great honor. And as you were saying, it's a great fear and responsibility that comes along with that too, because
Fear leads to hate, though. So
that's true. That's a good point.
What does hate lead to?
No, fear leads to anger, and anger
Oh,
leads to
you're right,
hate,
you're
and
right.
hate leads to suffering.
Hate leads to
I don't write
there
the
it is.
movies.
I just watch them.
Clearly.
But we were talking about the stress of writing a Star Wars movie and doing right by it, especially and I think a lot of people are cognizant about that, especially with how divisive the prequels are to a lot of people, and how sacred I think the original trilogy is to a lot of us, New Hope, Empire, and Jedi. And so I was curious, specifically for you, Gary, but also for everyone, because we've talked about Star Wars many times on this show, but not really in terms of a film by film basis. What do we think? And if there's an objective answer, even, and probably not, but what is the best Star Wars movie, the essential Star Wars movie? And I think that for a lot of people, and me included, it's Empire. But what is your favorite Star Wars movie and why? Because I'm always interested in hearing. We always talk in platitudes.
Sure.
Oh, Empire's the best.
Yeah.
But why? And why would maybe Jedi or New Hope not be as good as Empire? So Gary, I'm curious if you can talk a little bit about maybe what your favorite Star Wars movie is.
Or you can just give us intimate details about the one you just wrote.
I would hesitate to get into an argument about what is the best. I can tell you my favorite one is Empire.
Sure.
And it's not a particularly controversial answer. It is, it's a really good one. And I think what's really interesting to me about the original Star Wars trilogy is that it tonally shifts so much from the first to the second film. I did a lot of reading about the original. Jay Rinsler wrote these amazing books about the making of the original trilogy and how the films were received when they first came out. And there was all this tremendous anticipation for Empire, but when it came out, it really threw a lot of people because wait, this is suddenly much. Look at the tone of the original Star Wars, which is really, it's just fun. It's like camping places. It's just like
It's a save the princess.
yeah,
story.
it's a save the princess. The farm boy saves the universe, and it ends on like a tremendous triumphant note. They all get their medals apart from Chewie, and everyone.
They don't recognize dogs.
everyone-
Chewie didn't get a medal?
No.
Remember
How
they
did
did that
I
at
never
they did that at
realize?
the MTV Movie Awards like 20 years later. They
They finally gave him a medal.
his medal.
That just blew my mind.
He's not a person to
He was
them.
too tall?
He's a pet to
And
them.
he did it. He did as
tall.
much. He did as much as anybody.
It's
did a
racism.
lot.
It's straight up racism.
Doesn't get a medal.
Alderaan got what it deserved. Bunch of racists. Jesus.
So
I'm
it's
starting to see your point.
it's a fun, fairly lighthearted movie that ends on a triumphant note, and then The Empire Strikes Back is a really dark movie that ends on a massive downer.
Yeah.
And I think when it first came out, a lot of people were really thrown by that, and it's only over the years that the movie's come to be appreciated for what it is. Like,
Yeah, see, that's what I think I liked most about it, though, is the characters seemed way more real in Empire, and you empathize with them a lot more than you do in A New Hope, where you're like, they're gonna win. At the end of this movie, we know that they're gonna win. All signs point to they're getting those medals at the end, except for, I guess, Chewbacca, who got just totally
never
assed
noticed
out
that
of that.
until
No,
now,
I
huh?
never did.
Yeah.
I had a huge crush on Princess Leia, so I was kind of looking at her.
you're
the
too
whole
busy
time.
looking at Princess Leia.
A little bit, She had those buns, the Cinnabons, in her hair. Doesn't matter.
It's the same thing as always. Like, it's when you're doing a movie. I feel like this happens a lot with superhero stories. Like we Spider-Mans. your Captain Americas, the second one's better than the first. If we like, the origin story has to build up and do so much stuff that I love jumping into the sequel where I know this character already. I already know their backstory. What's the adventure happening right now? They're already at the top of their game. What happens next to them?
Yeah, you have the luxury of, having, oftentimes if you do like a TV pilot or an origin story movie, there's a certain amount of real estate you have to set aside just to set everyone up. And then when you do the second one, you get to hit the ground running with those characters that you already know. So I guess it kind of had that luxury. But again, it's fascinating to look at it. Like, most sequels don't shift tonally very much. Like, the second Spider-Man movie is tonally much the same as the first.
Right.
But Empire is radically tonally different to Star Wars. And then Return of the Jedi kind of brings it back towards the middle a little bit. Like, it's dark, but it's also got a lot of fun moments. And so it kind of goes, it charts this kind of really interesting. If you think of the original trilogy as one big 3-act movie, with Star Wars is Act 1 and Empire Act 2 and Return of the Jedi Act 3, it actually kind of works as a story structure. Like, the Act 1 is, kind of like you said, the origin story. Act 2 is typically where everything goes wrong for the characters, and Act 3 is where they kind of right the ship and bring it back around and resolution. In the end. So, and that's, fairly basic, story structure, and it works in each film, and it works over the course of the 3 films as well. But it is my favorite. It's got all my favorite bits in it. Battle of Hoth, I think, is just fantastic.
Well, that was so cool too, because it was not like you pick up right after the old one left off, right? There was clearly time in between, and you're on a whole different setting. I mean, those are bold choices back in the day, especially for a franchise that you're like, no one thought was going to be anything. The New Hope comes out, it blows up. You've got a lot of pressure,
and it did a lot of things. Like, it's interesting. Only when you go back and like really study them, instead of just kind of watching them take for granted, you realize like things that change. Like, the original Star Wars has tons of aliens in it, right? Loads of really interesting. It has a cantina scene. This is nothing but like crazy aliens.
Right.
Empire Strikes Back has almost no aliens in it. Think about it. Where are the aliens in the Empire Strikes Back?
Right.
Yeah, just the bounty hunters, and
they sleep in one.
What was the guy?
Tauntaun.
Was he an alien?
That's
or was he a
Lobot,
cyborg?
and he's like a guy
he's like an android.
You have the Ugnaughts, the guys that are down in the scrap heap. The Chewie has to go down and like get the C-3PO his parts back from.
Right.
But apart from that, there are. Like, you think again, typically, if they were doing this today, go, the kids loved the aliens in Star Wars. Let's make sure they have tons more in the next one. But they didn't do that. They just said, this is the story that we think is the right next chapter. We don't feel like we have to check boxes and say, well, let's put aliens in.
Right.
Gotta get re-ease in there somewhere. And
I feel like now you'd be like, they'd come to you and say, you need to write 15 types of aliens that can be incredibly expensive toys that we could sell to children. But then they probably didn't have that concept of that huge merchandising need.
Well, I think they probably did after the first one.
Yeah, I was going to say,
that's
and
a
George
good point.
Lucas, he knew all about
yeah, George Lucas said, we were just reading a thing on Colin and Greg Live, I think it was earlier this week or maybe late last week, about toys, specifically how much money in the United States toys are grossing. I'm talking about Kenner and obviously Hasbro later on, about how George Lucas himself said, like, the money is in the toys. Like, I own Star Wars, but the toys are where
yeah, it's one of the many ways in which I think George Lucas really kind of changed that world. In that, I think when, again, I don't remember the exact details, but I think when he did the original deal to set up Star Wars as a film, one of the things he wrote into the contract, well, okay, you can have this and I'll do all these things you want me to do, but like, I retain the rights to any merchandise. And they went, fine. Like,
sell some t-shirts, go for it.
And now, of course, and because of what happened, merchandise is like the one thing that you absolutely cannot get in a contract, because they know that again, if it's
fat margins,
they know that's where the money ultimately is.
So I'm wondering how you feel about this too, Nick, in the sense that I've thought about Empire pretty deeply lately, because I've seen that movie. I've seen that movie a lot.
Right.
That's a Colin quote, right?
That is such a Colin quote.
And I think what's special about Empire in my mind, because I agree it's the darkest. I think it's the best written. I think the characters are the most interesting at this point. Is A New Hope was obviously episode 4, but it was made, I think, under the auspices that it might be the only one. And so A New Hope is. Because I read Rinsler's books too, or whatever, at least the first one. I don't know New Hope and Empire. I haven't read the one about Jedi yet. And they talk a lot about, obviously, the tumultuous nature of getting the movie made. And I think that, so when you have, in A New Hope, you have the story, you have like a beginning and an end to the story. They kill Tarkin at the end, so they kill the bad guy. Vader goes, the TIE fighter like flies off into space, obviously to leave him alive in case, obviously that the story demanded that or whatever. But it was a self-contained story. And I think what's so special about Empire, that, and even though it's obvious, I never really made the connection, is that it can't exist on its own. You need the context of A New Hope, and you need Jedi to finish the story. And I think that that's what's so special about it, is that it exists simply as a bridge. And it's a really well-written and a really super dark bridge. And I agree with Gary that the Battle of Hoth is awesome. Like the snow speeders and the AT-ATs, the fact that that there is time in between the end of A New Hope and the destruction of the Death Star, the rebels are still on the run, and it shows how weak they are. They're trying to hide,
Right.
And they're found by the probe droids, and then the Star Destroyers jump in. Piet goes down to the ground with the AT-ATs, and they're trying to get the rebels, or whatever. And then you get
Central General Veers who goes down.
Oh, Veers. I'm sorry, Veers.
Sorry, I spent a year having.
I was going to say, how much research did you have to do for that? Do they just give you? They just drop off a giant encyclopedia and they're like, you need to memorize this, or else we're gun to the back of the head.
I mean, even before I did like the kind of the deep dive in living with it for a long time, you know, I way too much of my mental real estate.
The mental real estate
was set aside to knowing that shit.
Wikipedia is a black hole. Should you choose to go there.
Very much
Those
so.
like DK books.
Yeah, I used to have all those books when I was a kid. But anyway, I was just thinking about like from an act to act basis, it's dark. Like the Empire, and it's so the story's clever too because, and we've talked about this before. I think Greg and I talked about it specifically that why I love Empire as well, and towards the middle and towards the end when they hire the bounty hunters is that the story splits into two, and that they start using different characters in order to get the end goal, and like the Empire works with a gangster basically to get what they want,
right?
And they hire these 6 bounty hunters to basically bait Luke, you know, and to get Han or whatever. So it's just like I just love the structure of the story and how dark and dismal it is. And I think that is maybe the essence of why Empire is so special.
But think about how agonizing it must have been in 1980 when that film came out to get to the end. and like we live in a world now where in the world of like serialized television, like a cliffhanger, we're like, oh shit, I got to wait until next week to see what happens.
Or on Netflix until it plays.
Now imagine this: you're seeing in a theater in 1980. Okay, Darth Vader is Luke Skywalker's dad. What does that mean?
Spoilers.
Is that true? Han Solo's frozen in carbonite. He belongs to Jabba the Hutt. Everything's fucked up. See you in 3 years.
My God,
Like-
I can't even imagine.
It would suck.
That's
It would suck.
insane.
awesome.
Colin, to your point though, I think bringing up Gary's other point, which is if you look at it like a 3-act structure, I think anyone will tell you the second act is always the most interesting in any story. That's when the characters are sort of really figuring stuff out. They're hit with all the conflict, and that's when they have most of their change. And I think that's what we're seeing there. With the third act, everyone finds probably the most entertaining because that's when the climax happens and all that stuff's happening. And that's when I grew up. When I was a kid, I always thought Jedi was the best. I was like, no, Jedi's the best movie. They win, right? It's not until you kind of develop a little bit more sensibility as an adult that you go back and look at it and go, no, they had the most growth as characters in Empire and the most messed up shit happened.
Yeah,
to
it's also the most kind of spiritual of the three as well. Like all the stuff with Yoda, where like, you know, in the first movie, the Force is just kind of glossed over. Well, it's his energy field, and you can do stuff with it. And then it's in the second one that they actually start to kind of layer in the philosophy and Yoda's got all this amazing wisdom. People often forget as well. It's got one because we just take for granted. It's got one of the great reveals in it, not just the "I am your father," but you know, imagine going back and watching that movie and not. I'd love to go back. I'd love to be able to Eternal Sunshine my knowledge of The Empire Strikes Back and go back and watch it for the first time and have that moment because it works brilliantly well. You realize, oh, the little annoying swamp creature is actually the great Jedi Master. You don't get that. You don't think anymore. But that played at the time as this incredible reveal. Like they did a good job of selling you that this is just this annoying little creature who's going to take you to some grand, you know, Obi-Wan like figure, and then you realize this is actually the guy.
Yeah,
it's really brilliant.
Blows your perception of everything. That blew my perception of everything because you were set up. You're Obi-Wan. You're like Obi-Wan's a normal human being, right? So you take with that what.
Tim and I just had that moment. It blew your perception of everything. You walked out of the theater. You're like, I don't even know how to perceive the sun.
Nothing will ever be the same again.
Sadly, I definitely did not see that movie in the theater. I wish I had. I think I saw Jedi in the theater, but I don't think I saw Empire Strikes Back in the theater. That was either on beta or VHS. I'm not quite sure which one we had. But no, that was really cool, and that was really cool and very forward thinking of George Lucas to kind of go at it and say like we're going to play with your perception of what a hero should be or the Grand Master should be, because you know you always get to the Grand Master. Sure, if you're looking at kung fu movies, for instance, the Grand Master's always an elderly old man, but he's still badass and he's still human size. You get to this, you get to Yoda, and you're absolutely right. You're like that's not anything.
This Muppet isn't the guy.
All this dude's good for is he's going to eat my little beef jerky that I brought with me.
Well, that's why it was so frustrating. You know, that's why Yoda was a special character too, and you almost forget because I almost think of Yoda and Dagobah as a more of a Return of the Jedi thing, forgetting that in Empire it's an instrumental part of the movie as well because we're glossing over because you're really trying to get from Hoth to Cloud City, right, and to the Darth Vader reveal at the end and Boba Fett taking Han away to Jabba, right? Like that's basically the arc. And there is this really important, like Gary was saying, this philosophical thing in Empire that makes it even more special. I think it's what was so frustrating to me about Yoda in the prequels was that he was why I hated that he used the lightsaber and all that kind of stuff. Was like I felt like he was supposed to be so powerful that he didn't even bother with them. You know what I mean? And that was like what was so he wasn't even about fighting like you did when he's training Luke.
Colin.
It's about calmness and spirit.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that was what was so special about Yoda.
That's what I loved about it. I mean, my favorite moment in that whole movie is when Luke tries to bring the X-Wing out of the swamp and he says, I can't do it. And Yoda does it. And it's this magical moment. You realize, wow, this little tiny little creature actually has this incredible power. And, Yoda says, I don't believe it. And Yoda says, that is why you fail. And like, as a 10-year-old kid, that's a very simple philosophy. Like, you can only do it if you really believe you can do it. But as a 10-year-old kid, I was going, that just blew. I was like a 10-year-old stoner going, man, that just blew my fucking mind.
This guy
like,
just influenced
my
me.
perception of
It has changed my perception of everything.
Changed
Now,
my perception.
I
of
want to
everything.
ask one more question before we can talk about the other films, but specifically with Empire, because Greg always busts balls about this specifically with Boba Fett, right? And that Boba Fett has become this cult hero. I love Boba Fett, right? I love Bossk and IG-88 and Forlorn. For some reason, like they're Dengar and Zuckuss. Like for some reason, all those bounty hunters are just amazing
Shout out.
characters.
Well, can I ask? Did you like? Were you fascinated by those characters because we didn't know much about them?
I was fascinated by them because we didn't know anything about them until Tales of Jabba's Palace and all that kind of stuff told. So the Tales of the Bounty Hunters told their stories, although that's not
Sure.
canon anymore. But it was also there's something special about Boba Fett, specifically, right? We see Boba Fett. He barely talks. I love that scene, as I said before, in
no
Cloud
good to
City
be
when they're at
dead.
Bespin and Darth Vader's at the table and he walks out next to Vader or whatever, like. And then he obviously, like Greg always says, he goes out like a bitch in Jedi or whatever.
Yeah, right into the
Like-
Sarlacc pit.
So I'm curious, Gary, like what what your interpretation is of Boba Fett. Why does he resonate so much with Star Wars fans? Like he's an important character because he delivers Han to Jabba and that starts that whole their return to Tatooine and stuff like that. It's necessary, but why? Like people love him. He has basically like 3 minutes of airtime.
He's a badass.
Why do you think that is? And do you love him? Like,
I think it's just generally true as a character thing that we find mysterious characters really compelling and mystery is interesting, and this goes all the way back to the Man with No Name and kind of mythic characters where the point that the idea that they're shrouded in mystery and you never really truly get to know who they are or what they're about or where they're coming from. That's like because you want to know more.
Yeah.
And so it's that desire to kind of fill in the blanks and like who is this guy? Like Boba Fett shows up and he's got this cool armor and it's like, well, this is like a badass dude. Like I want to know more about him.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that they kind of keep you a little bit, it's like it leaves you wanting more, which is of course the great. Anytime you can do that and kind of just suggest and let audiences kind of fill in the blanks on their own. I guarantee, I'm sure most people walked out of The Empire Strikes Back feeling like they knew more about Boba Fett than the movie actually showed you, because it just suggested this idea of this badass character that just sets your imagination running wild. Again, and that's true of like thiings like Man with No Name or Zatoichi or like these kind of great mythic heroes who. Part of what's appealing about them is the fact that you can't get close to them. You don't know very much about them.
Yeah, I felt that way about Jabba's little dude.
Salacious Crumb.
Yeah, Salacious Crumb. You just see him, you're like, fuck. He's
The Rancor
badass.
Keeper.
I think also Boba Fett was set apart though, right? Because he was the one that actually accomplished the job too, so we got more screen time. And he was a badass. What do you want?
No, I love.
And also,
I
I think he also had the a lot more going for him with his character design as well, because his armor was badass.
Yeah, and
Everyone
his ship was fucking cool looking
ship
too.
was dope because
Slave.
it flew the wrong way. You expected
Yeah.
it to go like
I
this,
had
and it
the
went like this. And it
they
just kept
never
going. You're like, what the fuck?
it's never mentioned in the film, but I had like the large scale Boba Fett action figure when I was a kid, and on the back of the box there's like an annotated diagram of like this is his like repelling gun and this is his like radar helmet thing, and then there's a thing that says Wookiee scalps, and you realize that the kind of the braided hair things that he has in the film, those are Wookiee scalps. This guy scalped Wookiees. That's so brutal. Like that's badass.
That's badass. Wookiees are not small, as we learned in our previous discussion. When you can't even put a medal on their heads, that's how tall they are. Which I assume is the only reason why Chewbacca did not get a medal.
Again,
at the
Leia
end
was a racist.
the first film.
She did not recognize
Down with
Wookiees as being
he was probably
real people.
their thought was probably like, we only have a few medals. This Wookiee is here with Han because of a life debt anyway. He doesn't
Well,
even
at
want to
the-
be.
Would you
At
give
the end-
Portillo a medal if you
At
get
the end, in the
Good point, I
final,
wouldn't.
in the final shot of the movie, they all turn around
yells.
and Chewie goes, "Rawr," and like you can interpret that, I guess, as like, "Where's my fucking medal?"
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's true.
Hey, this isn't over. This is oh. Son of a bitch. God damn it.
Sorry, Chewie. Humans only.
Obviously, in your experiences with Star Wars, as both a fan and as actually now contributing to the canon, Did it occur to you, and you probably won't be able to answer this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. The newest Star Wars films weren't exactly perfectly received. You get the opportunity to sort of write a very, I'm going to say wrong, but you get the opportunity to contribute in a positive way to the series. Was that something that kind of weighed on you at all?
I refer you to my previous answer about how I had a lot of fun working on the movie, and I look forward to seeing it when it comes out in December of 2016.
Gotcha.
Abomination, available now on Inkshares.
I contemplated doing that, but I thought it would have been too cheesy.
No, don't worry, I do it
It's
for
good
you.
when you do it.
Yeah,
though.
don't worry. Here
When
it
you do
is.
cheesy
Throw
things,
it
it
out all the
works.
time.
Remember, hashtag
it fits.
touch my knee, Gary. In
Yeah,
the
you can
comments.
win a
Oh,
signed.
okay.
Then we're giving away the autograph
Yes,
copy. Remember?
exactly.
That's
So
right.
Nick, earlier you were saying that Jedi was your favorite growing up, and
When I was a
think
kid.
when I was a kid too, and I think up until recently,
All
Jedi
'cause of the
was
Ewoks?
definitely my favorite. Not because of the Ewoks, but because of the speeder bikes and
Speeder bikes were
the
dope.
opening scene of just fucking Luke being a badass. Like Luke is now finally
That was
fucking
always cool.
badass.
That was always
and
cool.
also Leia being a fucking badass. Like when you see that she's in the fucking
Whose
little
armor?
outfit.
Whose armor?
Bosch or Ray or Bausch, however you say his name.
There you go.
Like that was so cool to me, but it was definitely the speeder bikes that like.
And I will
just
maintain
completely
this as
sold
well.
it.
It's more than 30 years old now. Return of the Jedi came out in 1983. I still believe that the Battle of Endor is the greatest space battle that's ever been put on film. No one's ever beaten it. I don't
Yeah,
know.
it's awesome.
Yeah.
It's awesome too because the second Death Star's there, they're fighting, and the things going on the planet are actually consequential. So it's not just like a battle going on in space above a planet, but like I like the connection between what's going on in the ground.
Yeah, all three of those pieces at the end are connected. What's happening on each piece is affecting what's happening, or has implications for what's happening in the other pieces.
It's awesome. Like I think Jedi's really. I think some people are really tough on Jedi. I understand some people don't like the Ewoks. I think they were supposed to be Wookiees, right? Originally, didn't they want that to be
I don't
like Kashyyyk
recall.
or the Wookiee planet? And I guess they went in a different direction and made Endor. I think the Ewoks are kind of cool. Like
I get a lot of shit for it, but I defend the Ewoks.
The Ewoks are awesome. I was in love with the Ewoks.
they're like I
They
think
had the
like
funny teeth.
yeah, like they're like guerrilla fighters basically. Like
they're
they're primitive and they still try to hold their own against the ATSTs and stuff like that. I think it's a cool story. I agree. Like what was so disappointing about the ending of Empire towards Jedi when you see Luke with his green lightsaber and all this kind of stuff is that like what happened, and we obviously get that in Shadows of the Empire a little bit, but that was what was so cool about it. I agree too. Is like Luke is just different.
He's the man in black.
Like
Yeah.
he's just totally different, and I think that's really
Open the door.
yeah, he suddenly he has like a vibe, like an Obi-Wan vibe. Suddenly, confidence, right? And he gets in there, gets through the gate before Tuna and all that kind of stuff. Gets there. Obviously, yeah, Leia hidden in the bounty hunter outfit. Lando's there. It's like Lando not even a little bit disguised. I have no idea how they haven't figured out who Lando was. So like, Jabba's palace is really cool, and even though Jabba was supposed to be in the first one, and they mention him, in I guess in Empire, implicitly, there's no context to who he was. He was a person, obviously, in A New Hope when they filmed it, whether or not they were going to replace it or not. And then they put it back in the special editions, but it's cool too because that was our introduction to Jabba the Hutt, who's just gangster. He's like a warlord,
Badass.
and like so, there's all these unholy alliances basically going on to try to progress the story, obviously, but everyone has different interests that are kind of conflicting with each other. So I think Empire is really cool too. I agree. The whole fight with Lando and Nien Nunb on the Falcon.
Yeah, I mean that was. Sorry. Continue.
No, I was just saying, it's just awesome. Like I agree with Gary 100%. I think that space battle is really special. And next level compared to New Hope's too. Not only because the effects are a little bit better and it's a little more dense, but because we see more than Y wings and X wings. Now we see B wings and
I love the B wing.
yeah, and the B wings
Which one was
also
the
they
B-wing?
have
Was that the one that had that was like a
The B wing is
the
the one that looks
bowl?
like a cross, like this.
Yeah.
and then you see like
And the A-wing was just the normal.
Was the little snub.
yeah, and you have
fighter.
the A wings as well, and then you have not only the TIE fighters and TIE bombers that were in Empire, but you have TIE interceptors and all this kind of stuff. It's just cool. It's just a much more dynamic battle.
I had a blows my perception of everything moment recently when I was playing an Xbox game, and I was right in the middle of working on Star Wars, so everything was like, I kept seeing Star Wars and everything I was doing, even when I was like trying to switch off. And I remember looking down at my Xbox One controller and seeing the 4 buttons, X, B, Y, and A, and I remember, fuck, those are the 4 kinds of Rebel fighters. X, B, Y, and A. And it blew, and I was like blown,
that's
my
weird. I
mind was
never thought
blown
of
for like 5 minutes. Yeah.
That's crazy. I did not realize that either.
Yeah, I would have never thought of that. That's super interesting.
Yeah, I mean that's Tim, to answer your question originally. I mean, that was. I actually do think though, going back and looking at how those 3 sort of battles are happening simultaneously, the importance of them is that each one of them plays a pivotal role in what's happening with the
plan,
overall
yeah.
story, right? And so that was really cool to me. Is if you look at it, it's basically it's a great textbook way of how to tell a team story, where like you've got other movies that don't do it so well. And now more than ever, it's really important. You've got X-Men, you've got Avengers, you've got all these movies that are coming out now that kind of figured it out that they have to have each of their characters do something pivotal. Otherwise, it's boring.
Yeah.
And so, one could argue that if they'd just blown up the Death Star with Luke on it, it would have still had the same general effect, but we wouldn't have gotten the gratification of his storyline sort of wrapping up. But yeah, I mean, like I remember watching X-Men, the original X-Men movie, and it was a good movie, but I remember thinking to myself, why didn't they figure out a slightly smarter way to split these characters up so that they could have achieved sort of different parts of that common goal, like Star Wars did.
Well, Days of Future Past did a
Days of Future
better
Past
job
did.
of that.
They did a better job. That actually I think is a better example of sort of how to take a badass character and not make him the focus, just have him sort of be the vehicle, which I thought they did a great job with. I don't know if you saw the film, but they took Wolverine and he was basically just moving the story along, which I thought was kind of cool, because you always think of Wolverine as like, okay, it's gonna be about Wolverine. If he's in the movie, he's the most dynamic character. It's gonna be about him. But it wasn't about him. It wasn't really his story. He was just sort of like the vessel, if you will, to kind of tell that
It
story.
only took 7 movies for it not to be about
I mean, I love that, and I love what they did with Wolverine as well, his standalone story. But yeah, I loved Jedi when I was a kid because of that, because they had those 3 planes of action that were happening, and they tried to do a little bit with Phantom Menace, and it worked. I mean, they sort of had Annie flying around, and they had Qui-Gon and all that happening. It didn't have the same panache. I don't think it had the same effect.
Well, that was the
Which
thing.
weren't
I
as
mean,
best in the story
that
either.
for episode 1, for Jedi, when it would cut from one place to the other, you'd be like, "Oh no, I don't want to leave that part."
No,
yet.
it's a masterpiece of structure and editing, and you realize all the pieces interlock. What's happening on the ground is they need to blow up the bunker so the shit will come down up in outer space.
Yeah.
And everything's happening against the backdrop of is Luke going to turn to the dark? All these pieces connect, and again you can appreciate that. But from I've been doing this now for long enough as a writer, where I see the movie, but you also kind of see like the matrix behind the movie, and like how all the moving parts connect, and just how difficult it is to make that work as a piece of like structure and editing and storytelling and making sure all the beats land in the right moment so that at the end of the end result is so satisfying. It's incredibly difficult to do, and Jedi gets a lot of shit, but I honestly think the third act of Jedi, that 3-piece structure of that amazing battle on the ground in space and with Vader and Luke and the Emperor, is the best stuff in the whole trilogy.
Yeah,
it's incredibly well done.
It's a masterpiece right there, master stroke, I should say.
Yes.
Yeah,
A master stroke.
it blew my perception.
Of everything.
Everything.
Wrap your head around that.
Blow
ladies and
people
gentlemen.
away every time you say.
I want
anything.
someone to make a picture of us. I want it to be a close up of Salacious Crumb, and I want it to say it blew my perception
Of everything. Send it at No Taxation or at Kinda Funny Vids on
Stupid
Twitter.
shit that comes out of my mouth sometimes. Sorry about that.
Gary,
Yeah.
what's your topic?
Oh, I have a topic?
Yeah.
Oh, I have to have a topic.
Yeah.
Oh, I brought stuff.
Okay.
I brought props.
What'd you
Okay.
bring?
You're like the carrot top. Of
All right,
the
so
Game
listen.
Over Greggy show.
Even though I've lived here for 20 years and my accent is a bit of is all gone weird. People think I'm Australian.
you feel at home, governor?
Just don't. I'm originally from England, and as you know, I'm a big fan of your Oreo.
Oreo-ration. here.
Oreo-ration.
Kinda funny. Yes.
Is that the right way to pronounce it? Oreo? Do you just go
Oreo-
Oreo-ation or
Oreo-oration.
or there's a
There's a pause
there's a
there.
hard stop there.
Yeah.
Oreo-oration.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you still do that?
Yes.
Thought
Have
about
you
that.
have you looked at the new
Oreo-ration
Red
is better.
Velvet
I
ones?
have.
So what's typically the time difference between a new Oreo coming out and you being on the case?
When the big ones are coming up, like Red
Do you have
Velvet.
a system in place for like knowing ahead of time when
I
new
have
ones are coming?
contacts. I have contacts. I
Okay.
may or may not be on some mailing lists. I may.
Because
get some
sometimes I
things
see
early.
one in the store and I'm thinking I'll send it to you, but I'm thinking he's got it already.
Chances are I already got
Okay.
it. Yeah. If there's if something's not reviewed, it's just being excluded right now. Because what happened recently that changed my perception of everything. Red Velvet, obviously, but before that was the Marshmallow Crispy and the Reese's Peanut Butter one.
Right.
When those came out, those were like events. Like that one, I was ready for. I got them early. Oreo sent them to me so I could have my reviews prepped and primed
Right.
for the embargoes or whatnot.
Right.
Same thing here. Yeah. So
How is the Red Velvet one? I'm
it's
curious.
excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. I
If you had to
highly
be
recommend
stranded
it.
on a desert island with only one kind of Oreo, what would you pick?
I go with berry.
Berry?
Formerly,
Berry.
Formerly Berry Burst.
So now it's just berry?
Berry is a great everyday Oreo. It's like that's like your standby. That's what you have on tap, ready to go. I love the Marshmallow Crispy as well. I love, as you know, I had my first Oreo-gasm with the golden birthday cake Oreo. But those are like
I think the birthday cake one's too sweet.
Exactly. That was what I was talking about. I had the Oreo-gasm. I went, blah, and I lost my mind. But you couldn't eat that every day. You have a few of those, and you put them away, you stop.
And you do want an Oreo you can eat every day.
Exactly.
What about the classic?
I feel like classic is...
Classic's fine, but it's been improved upon.
You know what I think is that is a deeply underrated one because it's like it's there, but it's not considered like an interesting one. But it is, and it's fantastically good. Is just the chocolate one, the plain Oreo with the chocolate filling.
Sure. Yeah, I agree with that.
That's good.
But this is all my roundabout way of saying that as an English person, American chocolate is shit. That's
Damn.
So wait,
Bold words, Whitta.
but are you taking a
Bold
shot
words.
at Oreo still, or are you saying
yes, Oreos
shit.
as cook in the great pantheon
You
of
get the
cookies.
fuck out of here.
If there was like a global ranking of cookies, Oreos would basically be the sawdust at the bottom that the ranking table was put on.
You clearly never had a Chips Ahoy, my friend.
Oh no!
What?
No,
Let's not bring Chips Ahoy.
no,
into this.
Chips Ahoy are also awful.
My God. Well,
Chips
I'm
Ahoy
very
bad.
excited for what might be coming now.
So
Keebler
part
Elves,
of the
garbage.
reason why I wanted to take this opportunity
Yeah.
was to bring you some cookies, what we call biscuits,
Yeah.
from the UK.
Oh, okay,
My
okay,
country
okay.
of birth.
Yeah.
And you could do your own little oration right
sure.
now on
We
some
can all
different,
taste them.
some
Yeah,
different
yeah.
varieties, and I have enough for everyone.
Okay, good.
So,
I need
do
some
you have
cookies.
viewers in the UK?
Yes, we do. Oi! I'll translate for you. Oi there, governor! Sure got some biscuits for you with your porridge.
I'm sure they must be loving that.
Nailed it.
They
Nailed
really
it.
do.
I
They really do love
single-handedly
it.
drove Kevin McDonald out of IGN with that.
So I brought some things for you to try.
Okay.
And there's some of them are my favorites and things that I grew up on and
Oh, great,
things
okay.
that people in the UK will recognize all of these brands and
Okay.
things that you're about to try. So let me see. I've got my bag under here.
And
So
before we move forward on this, can we take a break for 5 seconds?
You want to take a pee?
Yeah.
Pee break?
Yeah.
Okay, we can do
Okay.
that. You got to pee?
I actually, if you're gonna pee, I'll pee.
Let's
All right,
pee.
let's
I
take a
mean,
pee
not
break.
like
At the same time.
collaboratively,
We can be
but
together. It's fine.
at the same time.
We're gonna do it
no,
all
we're
the
gonna
time.
collaborate.
Alright,
51
So,
pee.
so we'll come back
And we'll try these cookies.
and we'll do the biscuits.
Biscuits.
Fantastic.
Okay. All right.
Let me get out of the way.
All right, we're done peeing.
We're back.
We're back. Let's start eating biscuits.
Right. So as I said, Oreos, good in like a FEMA emergency ration type
You
situation.
eat them. You talked about this.
I'll be the first to admit that I eat a lot of shit, a lot of garbage. but at least I know that it's garbage.
Yeah.
Like, no, I'm not saying Oreos are like a fine delicacy.
I'm not saying they're a delicacy either. I'm saying there's better
But you
cookies.
you all sit and eat Oreos by choice as
I will,
opposed to any
I will
other biscuits.
recreationally use Oreos.
Right.
I will
And my argument is that there are so many better things that you can be eating if you're going to eat like stuff that's not good for you. Eat just at least
This is coming from
better
the
stuff.
man. This is coming from Gary Whitta, who after Up at Noon, our former roommate Mike met Gary Whitta and was blown away to meet Gary Whitta in line at a KFC Taco Bell.
Oh, that's right.
Don't come in here talking about your fine.
First
palate.
off,
again,
I forgot about that.
What point are you trying to make here, Craig?
That's garbage food.
Listen here.
And
Greg.
again, and I recognize it as garbage.
All right, show me
All
what
right,
a
so
better
here we go.
cookie is.
So what I'm going to UK viewers, listeners, I think will
Yeah.
recognize all of these. These are all classics.
Okay.
These are things that I grew up with and are kind of staples of. Like there are Oreos. There are version. The
And you're
British
saying they're way better than our Oreos.
I personally prefer them to Oreos, and you will orate on these. So
Okay.
okay. So
I'm excited about this. I haven't had chocolate in a while, so this is gonna be good for me.
let's start with a classic.
Okay.
So now I don't watch the show, so I don't know.
The show?
No. Don't worry. Of course I watch this show.
Okay.
I don't watch Doctor Who,
Oh,
but
okay.
apparently Doctor Who recently made these kind of popular because one of the recent doctors liked to snack on these because it's a very English thing. But they've been around for decades. These are known as Jammie Dodgers,
What a great name.
and they're fantastic.
I'm gonna hold them up like
little
your book.
hearts and stuff. I
Jamie
like this.
Dodgers.
I'm gonna take one of each of these for my wife because she's gonna, I'm sure, have had one of them and love them.
I'm gonna leave once you're done. I'm just gonna leave these. You can do whatever you want with the rest. So I'm not gonna.
Thank you. If you want to win one of these cookies and have it mailed to you in a Ziploc bag,
I will sign
touch my knee,
these
Gary.
cookies and send them to you. All right, so here we go. This is a Jammie Dodger.
Damn, that looks like a big ass motherfucker. Oh, okay, I see.
All right, thank you for the Jammie.
Is
Dodger.
everyone gonna partake here?
Oh yes.
Yeah, I'll try.
All right, okay. There's a Jammie Dodger for you. One
Jammy
for you.
Dodgers for everyone.
And I'll, of course, not going to be left out. So, just swish it around the palate a little bit.
I like the jam filling. I like that a lot.
I
Chewy.
feel like we have these. They're
You
not
have-
called Jammy
You
Dodgers.
have something similar.
I don't remember what it's called though. Do you guys?
There's kind of a raspberry-filled sandwich cookie that you can get. Looks like a generic thing. That is what when I can't get Jammie Dodgers, I'll get those, but they're not the same.
I feel like those are the ones that come in that bundle of other cookies.
Like the...
No.
The tin.
Yeah.
Fuck those tins.
Am I wrong?
Those tins,
tins are bad,
horrible. I don't know if these are in that.
Like pirouettes.
These are similar, though.
Like,
Greg, what's
like
the verdict?
Pepperidge Farm.
It's good.
Yeah?
It's not better than an Oreo. All right, let's not... I mean, it's
I'm
good.
going to be very interested to see if any of these are going to
I believe it.
blow away your perspective on Oreos. We'll see.
I really
We'll
like
see.
it.
You're a fan?
I like it so much that I want more.
You like?
Well, I'm going to leave the rest of the
He's
packet
got
with
a
you.
lot of stuff in that
I'm
bag.
gonna- that's the only reason I'm not eating this.
Pace yourself.
Okay,
It's a
okay.
marathon, not a sprint. Colin, what do you think?
It's good. I had the same memory that I feel like the jelly-filled cookies.
Like
in
the
that tin.
buttery cookie with
Yeah.
the jelly.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
This is
All right.
chewier than that. And I
Very
like
It's
it.
like a
Let's try
Pepperidge
something
Farm
else.
thing.
Let's try something else. Okay, so
Pirouettes. The Pepperidge Farm.
this is another staple. This is a classic.
Okay.
This is the Cadbury's chocolate digestive.
Okay.
My wife
What
loves
the hell?
those.
Now,
Why would you? That has a horrible name. The other one had such a great divisive
we don't name foods very well. I'll give you that.
Jammie Dodgers is amazing.
A digestive.
The Jammie Dodgers? That's a great name.
Yes, Jammie Dodgers is fantastic. A digestive biscuit sounds like something they would give you in hospital.
Yeah.
But the
Or when you're really
digestive,
bound up.
it's essentially a graham cracker biscuit, but,
Oh,
with,
okay.
but with chocolate on top. So I'll take that one.
Okay.
And then you guys are free to.
Excited about
I
this.
hear-
I'm gonna pass on this one because I don't eat chocolate. So
okay.
Sorry.
I hear a lot about.
I apologize.
You may have to pass on a few of these.
That's okay.
Because some of
Thank you.
Cadbury's doing a whole bunch of interesting stuff over there. Here, not so much. They just make the eggs. But I know they got an Oreo Cadbury chocolate bar. Everybody tells me out from over there.
That one
these
sneaks
are-
up on you. That's good.
And these are actual, not the bullshit Cadbury's that's made under license on Hershey here. These are actually imported from England.
These are legit.
I like how he talks like Colin does about Long Island and how like things from New York, where it's just like fuck everything else. This is the shit. Y'all some fake motherfuckers.
Greg, how's that one sitting with you?
These are delicious.
Thank you.
I'm a big fan of chocolate covered graham crackers. I like that this is softer than your normal.
It's not
graham
quite
cracker.
a graham cracker.
Exactly, it's softer than your graham cracker. You need
But it's
more.
the closest analog that I have for it.
It tastes more like a cracker. Because it's a little savory. It's kind of crazy.
Those are very Moorish. And if you like those, you are going to love what I have for you in a moment.
I like those. I'm excited about the
setup.
next
I'm
one.
not a big fan of this one.
Really?
Really?
No, really?
I like
The
it.
first one was a lot better.
Kind of contrarian view there on the chocolate
Yeah.
digestive. All right.
What don't you like about it? This is
Too rye. It's got
What
too
Nick's
much,
saying.
too much of
Okay.
a rye. Too
Now-
much
No,
of
it tastes like crackers.
These are
Yeah.
not as well known, but I
Okay.
grew up on these, and most English people do know them. These are called Viscount biscuits, which is a
You
very
are
English,
you are really bad at naming food.
very, very English.
Lions biscuits Viscount.
They all sound like pharmaceuticals, like
Now-
something that you would buy to keep
Solve
keep
a
from
problem.
brain hemorrhaging.
These are essentially
Whoa.
they're minty
Oh, I
chocolate
fucking
cookies.
love mint.
I'm excited
and-
about these.
They're very fancy because as you can see, they're individually wrapped.
Individually
So they're like
wrapped.
they're like the poor man's
like
York
peppermint
peppermint patty.
patties.
Colin, unfortunately, this is chocolate again.
No, I
That's
don't think
okay.
they're
Don't
poor.
apologize. I
Your
appreciate it.
peppermint patty doesn't come wrapped up like
No.
this.
It does when you buy them individually.
This has also got like cookie
All right.
biscuit in there as well, but like a mint flavor, and it's all wrapped in chocolate.
I'm getting ready for this one.
I think you're gonna like this one.
I do. I do.
Here's what. All right. No.
When I bite into a Viscount cookie,
Here's why.
Lions. When I bite
That's
into
exactly how an American would say. Y'all got some of them Viscount cookies?
Can I get one of the vice counts? Here's why I like these, and Gary. I know that you're new to this country, so I will I will school you on a small phenomenon that is currently happening right now.
Do you have something similar to this? That I
We have
don't
something
know
similar to
about?
this, but
Okay.
it only occurs once a year, and I'll give
Oh, Ghost Thin Mints?
the Thin Mint Girl Scout cookie. Those
That's
things
like
are
this is
so.
like a fat mint though.
This is a fat, but
Yeah,
it's
you're
but
getting more
it's
for your dollar.
it's like they took the Thin Mint and just inflated it a little bit without adding more density, which I like.
but
It's
there's
a lot
fewer
lighter.
cookies, so
than-
that's like kind of 2 Thin Mints in one, but you get
Well, no,
fewer
that's what I
of
was
them
saying.
in a
It
packet.
feels lighter, so you can eat more of them. I actually
Greg
prefer
going back
this
for
to the
seconds
Thin
on
Mint.
this?
No,
It's
I
not bad
wanted
at
to
all.
make sure I give it because I'm trying to make when I bite into a Lions biscuit Viscount cookie, I get the sensation I'm skiing out of mouth.
Oh my god, I'm bound up. I ate too much cheese. Try one of these Cadbury digestives.
They're healthy,
It'll make you shit your pants.
good tasting, and good
Greg,
for
what's the
you.
verdict on the Viscount biscuit?
Those are amazing.
They're good.
Yeah?
They're nothing out of this world. I think Thin Mint's right in there with you. I'm with them. Thicker Thin Mint.
So
but
far,
like
the
lighter.
digestive is the only thing that you feel is up on the Oreo level. Is that what
Well,
you're saying?
see, that's where we're getting. That's hard to say.
I'll put that. I'll put that on Oreo.
Jolly Dodgers.
Jolly Dodgers. That's the only way you can make that name more English is to call them Jolly Dodgers.
That was a legit F-up.
Jolly Dodgers.
The Jammie Dodgers.
That's just what they have to be called now.
Jammie Dodgers are sub Oreo. I think both
Okay.
of these are above
Are on
Oreo.
above Oreo.
Yeah, they're a higher quality.
Okay.
I'm not gonna come in here and be
All right.
foolish.
Okay.
Yeah,
Let's
these
move-
are
let's
the
move-
expensive
on.
ones.
Let's move on to the next one.
Yeah, we can all make 3
You're
pounds
gonna love
an
this
hour.
one as well because this is another.
Yeah,
this
we
is
can,
another
please.
great example of innovation in English biscuit naming.
Okay.
And the reason why I brought these up now, these have all been done in a very specially curated order. You liked the chocolate digestive. What happened was, several years ago in England, as a society, we basically said, Cadbury's chocolate digestive is fantastic, but how can we do better? Like, are we satisfied?
Sure.
Can we go to the next level?
So it's like the double stuff for Oreos.
And we all, the same way that we all got together to defeat Hitler in World War II,
Yeah.
and, we got through the Great Recession, and we did all that stuff. We pulled through and we came up, we did what was basically thought of as the impossible. Create a
You
biscuit
one-upped it.
that is like a chocolate digestive, and yet superior to it. And it was done. And it's called the Hobnob. So this is the McVitie's Hobnobs. Now, these originally, so to do an evolution, the original digestive didn't have the chocolate on top. It was just the graham cracker part.
Sure.
And then we added the chocolate. Same with the Hobnob. Originally was just the cracker part, the biscuit part, and then we added
It was
the
just the
chocolate on
hob,
top.
and then the knob came later.
Now, so just to kind of prime you on this is like a chocolate digestive, but instead of the graham cracker, it's more of a oatmeal kind of oaty biscuit.
Okay.
But more, I think, more substantial. And I don't know if this is a thing over here, but if you like to dunk, do you like to dunk your biscuits
We dunk.
People
into
dunk
your
here.
tea or your coffee?
Yeah.
Yep.
This is by far the most porous and absorbent kind of biscuit you can get. So it sucks up the tea or the coffee like a sponge.
Yeah.
So that when you take a bite, you really get that sensation as well.
I'm excited
Okay.
about
So
this.
I feel like I've queued it up
You
enough.
talked them up. And then the grab and go resealable
Yeah. So you
pack.
can actually reseal this. Give it. I mean, who's gonna? I don't think I've ever actually resealed one of these packs.
I was gonna say, once you pop the top on the McVitie's Hobnob, you just
pop,
can't stop.
You can't stop. So I'm gonna take the first one. I'll let you pass that around. As you can see by the texture there,
Oh yeah, I see where you're going with this.
see what I mean?
Yeah, okay.
So
It's
like
got
more of an
It's got
oaty-
the oatmeal, the oatmeal cookie.
I'm excited for this one.
Yeah.
Tim, I think you're
This-
gonna like this one. I think you're gonna love it.
Now, I'm not totally convinced that you didn't just take a printer and put this on a tin.
On a Pringles bottle.
Yeah.
A Pringles canister.
That's what it reminded me of when you
I
put
should
it
have
on.
brought one in and said, one of these I've made up. Can you guess which one it is?
The Jolly Dodger.
Yeah, no, these remind me of those Mother's cookies that you get. You ever have those?
oatmeal
with the
ones?
frosting one.
yeah.
Yeah. But they're slightly more moist, which I like. That's my one critique with those cookies, that they're too crisp. It's too much. You have to dip those in milk, otherwise they're just not. They're
You know, as I
inedible.
said, this was a result of trying to improving the digestive. I don't think they've necessarily done that. I don't know if it's better. It's just different.
Way different taste.
I think it's too similar to the digestive. I don't like this one either.
I like this one.
And when I say I don't like it, I just don't love it.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
Would I eat another? Yeah.
Yeah.
What's been your favorite so far? The Jammie Dodger?
The Jammie
I think you're the
Dodger.
only one that thinks that, right?
Jammie Dodger, dude.
He's from a different generation.
Yeah.
So the Jolly Dodger's just been speaking to the younger
I
kids.
feel
like
bad
the
for
jam,
Colin
I like
because
the
apart from the
Dodge.
Jolly Dodgers, they're
okay.
all chocolate.
No, don't feel bad. That's okay.
These also remind me of those the bars, the granola bars that are like the hard ones that you have to crack off.
Sure.
A little bit. It's got a little of that
Yeah,
flavor in it,
definitely,
too.
definitely.
Okay, so one more before we get into the final round.
Uh-oh.
There is a bonus round.
Oh wow. Okay.
Now, I'll say this. This, I think, if there's one biscuit, or cookie as you colonials like to say,
I love this biscuit business.
that truly sums up the British character and is probably most synonymous with Englishness.
Sure.
And, Bulldogs and Winston Churchill and Jerusalem and all of that good
James
stuff.
Bond, yeah.
And James Bond.
Yeah.
Downton Abbey.
And Downton Abbey. It's this.
Okay.
You may have in fact had these because they are popular around the world and they actually have spawned a brand of very popular imitators in the United States, but there's only one original. And it's known as the Jaffa cake.
Another McVitie's original Jaffa cake.
McVitie's pretty much owned this market.
Of what? Weird-ass cookies?
I guarantee you right now, as I was doing that very long little intro there, there were viewers and listeners in the UK were going, it's got to be Jaffa Cake. It's got to be Jaffa Cake.
Oh, he's going to bring out them Jaffa Cakes, Governor.
I love when he does the voice because it alienates everyone.
Well, every time he does it, Colin looks at the camera with like, "I'm sorry." Like he just has the look.
When I don't do it, people yell at me.
I think the only reason why they kept me around at Telltale is I used to bring these in with me. I think I might have been fired from Telltale if I hadn't kept bringing these in. Now,
Jaffa Cake.
So this is kind of a spongy biscuit on the bottom with an orangey
okay, so not a
jelly.
I thought originally it was gonna be a ginger snap,
and chocolate on top. No, this is my of all of these.
This is the
if I'm doing the desert island thing, which of these do you want to be stranded on a desert island with?
You're going Jaffa Cakes.
Oh, every time. I think these are sublime.
That now it makes sense because it has the texture of an orange, and then it has a little.
It reminds me of the mac and cheese.
Yeah,
box.
I was about to say Kraft.
It does look like the Kraft mac and
box.
cheese box for sure.
So
one for you.
Interesting.
Yes.
Now it smells very orangey.
Wow.
I wasn't expecting it.
It's orangey.
It's like, I imagine this is what it was like when Neil Armstrong stepped on the moon.
Wow.
Like, whoop, not the texture I was expecting.
Yeah, exactly. Texture's the first.
There's a reason why I saved this one for last.
Holy wow, that's unique.
It's the spongy undercoat. Now, Greg, you're doing something very interesting, which is actually eating it upside down.
See, I did the same
Which
thing.
many
with the
people
problem.
like to do because you actually get a different texture experience that way.
Yeah, Jaffa Cakes are real good.
Yeah.
Jaffa Cakes right now eating a Jaffa Cake, I now know, these have been around a long time.
Oh, yeah.
Snackwell's motherfucking ripped these people off on how their cookie texture
Well,
was.
so there's a thing called Pims that they have these. I think they're called like orange sponge things or whatever. And they're American clones.
America's so good at
They're basically
naming
grey
things.
market rip-offs of Jaffa Cakes. I've tried them. They're all right. They'll do in a pinch, but they're not the original.
Now, have you
this is
tri-
the only one I went back for a second one.
Have you tried the all chocolate Snackwells? Because they have the same consistency.
Interesting.
Yeah, but they're all chocolate. They're more of a sponge cake too. Second question: Does David Jaffe know they named
That's what I
a
thought
cookie
too.
after him because he should sue?
He'd be
them
he
for the
will
rights
be.
to
I'm
that.
sure he's already drawn up papers.
All right.
I'm just curious, real quick, to jump in. Are these sizes, right? This size,
The
these
package
sizes,
sizing?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Is this the standard size when you go to buy?
Yeah,
cookies,
so you know when you buy like Chips Ahoy and they come in like a massive tray
Right.
or like Oreos? No, this is basically this.
I was gonna say.
Oh wow.
You can get the jumbo size, but this is the standard size.
I was gonna say because that's how you know that they're not American,
Right.
Because there's not enough for you to gain
Gorge on.
5 pounds.
Oh,
See, that's
I'm
funny.
sure there is if you eat the whole packet, but
Yeah. Because my gut instinct, I thought that these were just.
I thought he bought them at the airport,
normal-
like
Alright,
the travel
Snack
size.
Yeah.
travel size. You're getting on a road trip. You know?
God bless America.
there's a lot of other things I would have liked to have brought, but the selection was limited. That's it for the sweets round.
Oh, okay.
So between the Jammie Dodgers and I would say the Viscounts are kind of more of a fringe thing, but Jammie Dodgers, the digestives, the hobnobs, and particularly the Jaffa Cakes are kind of like the staples of English biscuit-based snacking. So
Okay.
and now you've experienced them all.
I think like on a day, like I'm talking about everyday Oreos. Hobnobs would be an everyday cookie.
Okay.
Jaffa Cakes would be Jaffa-gasm.
Special occasion.
But yeah,
They're
I
not
need a
cookies
special.
though, Greg. They're Odie Knobbly biscuits.
Odie Knobbly.
See, now
Odie
this makes
space,
sense to me because
Knobbly space biscuits.
When I-
Knobbly is the best adjective I think I've ever heard in my life.
when I think biscuit, I do think about something that could potentially be sweet and savory at the same time. So tasting these now, it kind of I've always heard that term thrown around in the UK.
I mean, I could have called them cookies if that had kind
Right.
of helped you psychologically, but
but that makes more sense because it's a different taste in a
You're
cookie.
making us understand your people.
It's
Right.
like I said. Again,
these are the
biting into
ways
those,
of my people.
There's a lot more complexity to these cookies than I would have originally imagined. With American cookies, it's literally how much sugar can we cram in one small square inch,
And then how many
much-
of those can we put in one package?
Yeah, can there be 5 rows of them, and can one day,
God bless
when
this
we
country.
put out this product, can a big guy named Greg Miller review them for
Yeah.
us and make just a complete mockery of it?
Yeah.
I was just gonna say it's just hard to believe that we have a better understanding of the UK now than we did, considering Greg's deep understanding of British culture.
Yeah.
Well, no, but that only goes as far as the dialect, which he
okay.
is a master of.
Right, I heard that.
But once you have the dialect, you can say whatever you want about the country to make sense.
And that makes sense.
Oh, Governor, England sure was a pretty place in 1800. Oh, I tell you what, we sure did have some bricks. And you're like, oh, bricks in the 1800. It makes sense.
They probably did make a lot of
And
things.
that
out of
is
bricks.
where they get. That's where they get the shorthand of Brits.
You're making Gary cringe.
No, it's just I got a migraine coming on. It's fine. So that's that. I'm glad you enjoyed them. Greg, did you have an overall favorite?
Hobnobs is an everyday cookie.
Right.
Jaffa cakes when I'm
you're actually-
when I have company over.
Okay. What was your favorite?
I'm going with, is it pronounced Viscount?
Viscount.
Yeah, I'm going with
You
the
like the
Viscount.
Viscount?
I love those. Those blew me away.
I'm sticking with the Jammie Dodgers, man. They're good.
And by default, Jammie Dodgers.
Just 1 out of 1. Yeah, but I like the Jammie Dodger. I like the jelly in a biscuit.
Well, I'm glad there wasn't. I'm glad, like, if you'd have rejected the Jaffa cakes, I would have been appalled.
You
Like,
would just you
that's
never
like
speak
rejecting.
to us
That'd
again.
be like rejecting my entire culture.
They are unique. I don't know that I would, if I saw those on a plate, I would definitely go in for a couple other ones.
And the
before
irony
those.
is actually, like I said, if you walk into like a Safeway or whatever, this is the Jaffa cake is the one you can actually find the closest analog for in the United States.
What do they call it?
They're called Pims,
Oh, you said that. I'm sorry.
but they're not. Pims actually does a whole range of cookies, but those like orangey sponge cookies,
Gotcha.
they have a version of those. I can't
Okay.
remember what they call them, but they're not like, again, it's like methadone.
Right,
It's
you
like-
want heroin.
Yeah, you want the actual heroin. But if you can't get it, the methadone will scratch the itch
Whatever.
for you.
Yeah. Whatever. I'll
Right
appreciate
now,
that.
as a special bonus round,
Yeah.
Oh, man.
and we kind of did this wrong. These are things that I am proud to say are British.
Sure.
And I happily, like, if an alien race landed and said, "Show me the worth of your culture. Why should we spare you?" These are the things I would show them.
You just hold up the Jaffa cake.
What I would ask them, what I would deliberately be like trying to not show them,
Uh-huh.
because it probably would result in the destruction of our species, is what a food item that England is more notorious for, infamous for.
Fish and
So,
chips.
This is called, and I've got it down here. This is called a pot noodle.
Uh-oh.
Wow.
I didn't even.
You
I
are
mean,
going to try this, Greg.
Of course, you're a
Now-
guest in my home.
Now, a pot noodle
It looks
is
like
basically, you have the cup noodles, right? The ramen
Yeah.
cup of noodles, yeah.
and you pour the hot water in, and you put
Yeah.
a little flavor packet, and you mush them up, and you eat them. So, a pot noodle is basically what you would get if you subjected that to gamma radiation.
Okay. You're really
You're
selling
intrigued
these.
now, aren't you?
no,
can tell.
I don't want any of this. This is what I regret bringing
This
you on
is
this show.
this is the default. This is the basic flavor, and I've got another one for you as well, which is more
Jesus fucking
advanced.
Christ.
If you pass this test, we will be able to proceed to the next level.
Okay.
Oh,
If
man.
you fail here, you will not be able to proceed to the next level.
Okay. Can anyone else go to the level?
I'll do
People-
it.
people-
Oh, Colin! Yeah, let Colin eat some of this
Colin,
stuff.
you missed out on most of the cookies. So this is a chicken and
It's
mushroom.
noodles,
Now,
pot noodle.
chicken,
Gary, I
and
don't know
mushroom.
how-
Noodles, corn, peas in a chicken and mushroom style sauce.
Now, I don't know how much you know about Colin, but Colin eats some pretty weird stuff.
Okay.
Oh, there he goes. He's in.
This is great.
Thus, probably not eliciting the response that you thought you would get from that.
Well, what's interesting is back in the days when I used to hang out with the guys at Giant Bomb,
Yeah.
I brought this in because Jeff Gersman and Ryan Davis used to eat all kinds of disgusting
Right.
things. And I said, well, if you like disgusting things, let me bring you my disgusting thing. And I brought them a pot noodle, and they both rejected it. And Gersman in particular is known for eating, nearly anything.
Yeah.
Mostly kind of like junky type food. And I respect that. I admire that.
I like it too. It was a
Yeah,
little
I
hot.
think it's totally.
But they both rejected this, which made me think that a pot noodle was kind of like a bridge too far in
It's
English
just-
cuisine.
It's just one of those things. I don't even eat the cup of noodle. I've gone on the cup of noodle tour in Japan, where you make your own, you do all that stuff. But I've never actually
You know
eaten
what?
a cup of noodle. It just grosses me out.
Fuck it, it is good. I take it back.
I'm saying, like, when I was in college,
I take it back.
when I was in college, I used to live off of cup of noodles. You'd go to Costco and you'd buy like the 40 pack, and you just that would
See,
be like.
I have a
meal.
thing against them. I hate them. I hate the American cup of noodles. But this
Don't
tastes
turn
like
your back
a-
on your country.
No, I know this
It's
is
more
like a premium
substantial
one.
than typical
Yeah, this-
like ramen cup of
No,
noodles.
I like
I like
it.
it. Tastes kind of like a Cool Ranch Dorito, and I'm into,
Oh my
I'm
god,
into
it
that.
kind of does.
I'm into that.
No, I like it.
Greg, you gotta
try
do it.
You're the last man. You're the last
I
man
don't
to eat
even,
with
but
this
I don't
fork.
like soup. Like I don't, you know what I mean?
It's not-
It's
not soup.
Noodles.
liquids and solids mixing. Everyone.
The liquid is going to
so
run off of
weird.
the fork, and
It
you're just
actually-
going to eat the noodles.
It actually tastes more like pasta. It tastes
yeah.
more like
Yeah,
pasta.
get a
I
real
know,
fork
come on,
full of it.
for
Come
God's
on.
sake.
No, and the corn is in it too. I hate corn. This is
Oh,
fucking
my
bad.
God.
that
You're acting
comes
like
out
a
of your-
What's
child.
the other one? Is
Comes
the
out
When
of
we
your
get to that, you have to pass the level. You have to pass to the next level.
This is a feast we have on our table
Yeah.
right now.
It's a smorgasbord.
It's a smorgasbord.
Oh, you're crazy. It's not good.
Not a fan?
Really? I mean, I'm eating it because I was a legit big fan of Maruchan creamy
Right.
chicken ramen.
Right.
That shit's really good. Like I didn't grow up impoverished at all. I used to just be like, Dad, he's like, what do you want for the supermarket? I'd be like, can you just get like a case of the Maruchan creamy chicken?
Yeah.
And then the creamy chicken started being difficult to find. I think this is totally fine.
These have a reputation in England for being like, you don't want to be seen eating these in public.
Okay.
But And I haven't had one for many years. But the reality is, you know what? It didn't taste too bad.
Yeah.
That's not terrible.
All right, so you
Haters gonna
failed.
hate.
Everyone
You're
else
out.
has succeeded,
You're
which
out.
means you can now advance to the next level.
All right, I'm
So
excited
much
about
like
this.
with the digestive and the hobnob, where they said, people love this, it's very popular, but how do we improve? How do we take it to the next level? So they have various flavors of this, the chicken and mushroom being just one of many. But they introduced a new range recently, which is kind of like Pot Noodle Extreme.
All right.
And I'm going to bring that one up now.
Okay, because in America we would have just said, "How do we improve in this?" And then we'd take
Put
the
cheese
chicken
on
out
it.
and we'd put
This is the
shrimp
pot
in it.
noodle. Now, as you
Oh,
know...
it comes in a black tin.
Now, yes, because that's how you know it's extreme. It comes
the
in a
Magnum
black
version.
It comes in a black cup.
Okay.
Now, as you know, well, you may or may not know this, but in England, Indian food is as popular there as Chinese food is here. It's very, very popular. We love Indian food, and so there's a lot
Oh my
of
God,
dishes
I
that
just-
are flavored like Indian food.
I see the word curry written on it.
This is the Bombay Bad Boy.
Oh.
Yes.
Shit.
Oh,
Now,
this is exciting.
Whoever's naming this needs to go over to McVitie's and work there and just
Yeah.
work up their
What about the
branding.
Viscount cakes?
Now, what I've also done is this comes with a packet of chili sauce that you can add
Okay.
to your liking to spice it up further, and I put it all in.
Okay, great.
Because you
Great.
want the full experience. I'll
the
be the
full
first to
bad
go.
boy.
I'm going to the gym later, so I'm sure this will be...
You say that every time and you never do. You
I
just
never
end up
do.
watching horrible movies.
It's true.
This has got more of a kick to it.
I watched Hard to Kill the other night. Love that film. Steven Seagal classic. Kelly LeBrock.
This is fantastic.
Really
Again, let me preface for everyone that's not in the United States watching Colin. Colin eats a pound of mayonnaise a day. So his taste...
He's toned it down.
His taste... yeah, you should have seen the burger we had
Honestly,
today.
yeah.
I was...
What's
I
your
mean, it made
favorite
me
I
one?
want
proud.
this here.
Sorry, what was that grossing you out?
No, it made me
legitimate
proud.
meal.
I forgot
if you're
they had
genuinely
mayonnaise.
interested, I can give you the down low
The supplier.
on the import shop where I got these from. It's not far
Oh, these
from
aren't
your
even
house.
these aren't even from across the
Well,
pond.
you can
brought,
tell because of the
I
prices.
brought back a bunch of stuff from my recent trip to England, but I ate it all. So I had to go into the English
Yeah.
shop, the secret English shop where they sell you this stuff under the counter.
Oh wow.
This stuff's good, man. I'm telling
like it a
you.
lot.
I like this. I like this one even more.
See, all I taste is spice on that. I
The
just taste
spice kicks later to me. Like it
Yeah.
came when I had already handed
But I
it
might
off.
have gotten a big...
I
I'm gonna
just
take
like
one
how
home.
You may have got a
substantial
particularly
this
chili
tastes.
sauce
I got-
flavored bite.
Yeah, let me go.
You got sauce, bro.
Greg, you're definitely not.
Greg, you know you have to play.
I'm not eating it.
You do have to play this out.
Yeah,
You
no,
can't
come
go
on.
You
this
told me I
far.
wasn't allowed into the end game.
But you know what? I'm gonna give you a cheat code.
Okay.
That allows you to progress to the final level.
I love the way this sounds.
Can you? Yeah.
There you go, Greg. I mixed it up for you.
Thank you.
I love that on it says it's not rocket science. Rip off lid. Whip out the sachet. What the fuck's the
It's
sachet?
a sachet.
Oh, excuse me.
Sachet.
I'm trying to extend your pinky finger when you're holding
Yeah,
the pot
oh,
noodle.
you're right. You're right.
Okay.
You're right.
There you go.
Stir, and then stir again. Those are the two steps. Then grab fork.
Here goes
dig
Greg
it.
with the Bombay Bad Boy.
I like the spice.
You like
It
that
detracts
better?
from the terrible noodles.
And the
the
I
grossness.
don't think this is.
Well, you
Gary,
know,
I don't
you
think
know,
liquid
you know,
being on it.
you know the notion of spicy food in hot countries came from the idea that they would add seasoning and hot spices to disguise the flavor of meat that had gone bad in the hot weather.
Like George Costanza's dad.
I like that it comes in like a really substantial plastic cup.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
if you were my grandma, you
It's
would
like the-
you would take the lid off
Yeah,
and
well,
reuse
this-
that.
You- and
Yeah,
you can
it's like
actually
the
like,
cup drinks
and you can like
that cup would be around for 10 years.
you can rinse it out and keep pens in it.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
it's,
Oh,
it's
the old pen cup.
Yeah.
I
20
know
years,
exactly
you'd
what
never
you're talking about. I know exactly what you mean.
I actually feel bad now chalking down the pot noodle because you know what? I think it's actually pretty damn good.
It's a damn good noodle.
That was a great way to end the taste test.
Yeah.
It was, yeah.
So even you at the last there kind of came back around a little bit. On
Oh,
the
I would
pot
never
noodle.
fucking eat this. I would bomb the grocery store these are sold at. But
My God.
I mean, it's just my own problems, my own phobias
Okay.
of wet.
Well,
food.
maybe next
my
time, if I come back again, maybe I'll bring another selection of things.
just
That'll
don't
be
bring in more noodles.
So this tells you how much energy that it
gives you?
contains.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like there's like a fat level, saturates level, sugars level.
Yeah,
salt
the
level,
nutrition
and then
facts on,
energy
on
level.
English food
They don't do
products work
calories,
differently.
It's just energy.
Yeah.
Well, that's what calories
It's
are.
calories.
Man, I love people. That's awesome.
It's measured in calories.
But it's just called energy.
It's just
They just
different.
say
It's just like,
energy.
oh, it's not calories, it's energy.
So
You get
that
energy.
pot, just so you understand, so that is 433 calories, 16 grams of fat, 8 grams of saturated fat, 4 grams of sugar, and 2 grams of salt. So
fuck
all in
with
all,
it.
really,
Damn good.
pretty damn nutritious.
Yes, exactly. Today was a
I don't
good
know if
day.
that's what you want to read out of that information.
Not
they just
rocket
gave you.
science.
Ladies and gentlemen,
I'm glad you tried. You broadened your horizons today.
I did something all right. I did something. We'll see how it pays off.
And I'm happy to leave all of this.
The cookies for sure.
Excuse me.
Bless
I'll leave the remainder of the cookies here for you to enjoy at your leisure.
You can take the pot of noodles with you.
These
too.
are bad.
I
These
may
only
just
have
eat them
46
before I
calories.
leave.
46 calories in these. That's not terrible.
The Java cakes?
Well, yeah, if you eat one of them, but that's
You
never
eat
going to
one.
happen.
And the entire packet's probably like 4,000, but that's okay. It's not bad. That's per 100 grams. I don't know how you measure things by per 100 grams. I'm like, well, this is 50 grams.
The 1, 2, 3 for healthy balance. 1, eat healthily. 2, keep active. 3, enjoy the taste.
Wow.
I don't know if 3 is necessarily recommended by the FDA.
They have in England. They've got a lot more, and I wish they would do it here as well. They've got much more strict about the way that they label the nutrition. They have in the UK now. Well, they're just trying to introduce it. I've seen it on a bunch of products. What they call a traffic light system, which is just very simple. If it's green, it's healthy. If it's yellow, If it's red,
That's cool.
probably shouldn't be eating it.
Right.
And has it made a difference in what people consume? I doubt it. But they're trying to make it easier for people to kind of make sensible choices.
I hope they never have to implement that here because every Taco Bell would be painted red.
I don't really
inside.
understand the point of it. Like, are you really going to pick up a box of Jaffa cakes and go, "Oh wait, these aren't good for me"?
They've got oranges in them.
They seem like they would be until I saw the red light. But now I should probably put them back.
Yeah, I'll go for carrots instead. Those are orange, so that's some sort of combination.
They'd probably
of
be
yellow and
green.
red. They would be green.
You're making-
How do you
you're
put a
making
sticker on
joke,
those?
obviously, about the color.
It was a shitty joke to begin with. Sorry, it's been long in the day.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's another episode of the Game Over Greggy Show. Each and every week, 4, sometimes 5 best friends gather on this table, each bringing a random topic of discussion for your amusement. If you like that, go support us on patreon.com/kindafunny. You can get the episodes early each and every Friday. If you don't have any money to give us, no big deal. You go to youtube.com/kindafunny. You get it topic by topic, day by day, until the entire episode posts for free on Friday on MP3 services and video services like YouTube.
Yes. Is the word dwell?
Yes.
Fuck!
You got it. That's
Damn it.
awesome.
Fuck yeah!
Now, did you go away and Google it during one of the
No.
breaks?
No.
Okay, all right.
I saw him react.
Yeah.
And I thought I screwed up something.
You said, I don't know what you said, but something just hit.
Yes, correct.
There you
Dwarf,
go.
dwindle, and dwell.
I was
What,
taking
what's the other one? Dwindle, dwell, and...
Dwell, dwindle, and dwarf are the 3 words in
Dwarf.
English.
I had
language.
written them
Those
down on
together.
my little notepad trying to fill it in. God damn it, I wanted
well
to
done.
get that.
Yes.
Very well done, Jesus.
Don't dwell on it, guys.
It'll dwindle away.
Gary Whitta.
How about this one? What's the only word in the English language that has 3 instances of the same letter being repeated twice, 3 times in a row?
Mississippi.
Proper noun.
It is a proper noun.
I don't even know if I understood that question.
Okay,
Say
so
that one more time.
two of one letter,
Right.
followed immediately by 2 of another letter, followed immediately by 2 of another letter, all in the same word, without any breaks in between.
Hard fart.
Tatanka, which is the Cherokee word for bull, as we learned.
So not an English
Dance
word.
with
Buffalo.
So
not-
Buffalo. Was it
English
Buffalo?
word.
Yeah. Now I know that.
That's
I want you to
where's
know that
my
I
Dance
know
with
that
the
it
Wolves
means
joke
buffalo
go.
from the WWE song on the album based on wrestlers, where Tatanka had his own song.
That's where you get your Native American
That's where I get all my
heritage
information.
from.
That's where I get all
from
my
the
information.
World Wrestling Federation.
What is?
Now
what
I
is-
wanna know what- yeah.
Yeah. What is it?
Bookkeeper.
Bookkeeper. Interesting.
Oh, yeah.
00KEE.
Wow.
We keep learning things today.
Yeah. What word is spelled STOP?
Is there a hidden message there?
What do you do at a traffic light that's
Stop.
green?
Go.
What?
Damn it! I fucked up.
Yeah, you screwed up. You gotta do it.
I was saying,
Were
what do
you
you do?
going
What do you-
somewhere with that?
It was supposed to be, what do you do at a green light? And then you also say stop because you were just thinking stop.
Oh.
I fucked up. I fucked up,
Oh, I
guys.
see.
I fucked
Happens
up.
to the pure one. Gary, thank you so much for coming by.
Oh, thank you for
Yeah,
having
thank
me.
you. It was
Your
great.
book Abomination is buried under biscuits right now.
It's buried under
Jammie
biscuits,
Dodgers.
but we do have a
Good place
copy
to
that
be.
you guys are going to give away. You can go to inkshares.com, INKSHARES. The book is fully funded, but you can still get a signed copy.
All right.
If you go there. And you get a digital copy, an ebook thrown in for free
Whoa.
by Grabthar's Hammer. What a savings.
Don't forget to sign that one before you leave. We're giving it
Absolutely
away
will.
in the comments. Hashtag touch my knee, Gary. We'll randomly pick somebody. Basically, if you put any hashtag, we're gonna pick it because I don't know if I haven't changed the
I
hashtag
think
throughout
you
this
did.
episode. I'm pretty
Why
sure
is
I
he
did.
touching your knee now?
That's what I think the audience. I thought it was like a call from the comments that they wanted touch my knee, Gary. I know it ended in Gary. What do you think it was? Touched my knee, Gary. Like, come on, Tim, get real.
Hashtag touched by an angel. Whoever does that's gonna win for sure.
Yeah. You can go. So let's run down more of your plugs. Abomination, inkshares.com.
Yes, right now you can go get that.
Oliver, coming from Image
That's
Comics.
coming from Image Comics sometime in the summer. I think at Comic-Con we'll probably do something.
This independent Star Wars film you worked on.
Yes.
It's coming next year.
Next December, December 2016, you'll be able to go see that.
What promotion can we say about the other show that I did?
Oh, well, yes, because you and I collaborated on a project recently.
Right? Yeah. What can we say about that, though?
So I came up with it. I'm not allowed to say it yet, but soon.
Yes.
Actually, I'm the executive producer. I can say whatever the fuck I
was going to say,
I'm just choosing not to say it. So I came up with an idea for a web comedy show, which we desperately... The idea for it was so weak that the only way to salvage it was by having like really top tier talent. So of course I called Miller and said, "Come in."
Said all the top tier
come in and save this train wreck
no one
of a
else picked up
show.
the phone.
And you came in and it was interesting because I wasn't there the day that you filmed your bit.
Yeah.
Because I busted my ankle. But I remember texting you saying, "How did it go?" And you wrote back to me, "I was by far the best thing on the show." That's
true.
Which I'm perfectly willing to believe.
Yeah.
He says
Look for that show soon. I'll be
everything.
tweeting about it. We'll talk
there'll
about it
be
here.
some. I think it's South by Southwest. So about a month from now, that the first episode of that is going to be debuting. And it's not you, because we've already said that. There is a cameo episode a cameo appearance in the first episode, which is absolutely astonishing.
I know
it
it
is
is.
going to tear the internet apart when people see what we have. You know what it is,
Yeah.
but you have to be quiet about it.
I'm not going to say anything.
Okay.
I'm not the executive
But
producer.
it's cool, right?
Yeah, it's real cool.
Okay, good.
All right.
That's it.
Gary, it's been a pleasure hanging out with you.
Thank you. I love it. I'll come back anytime.
Oh, thank you. Boys, thank you for your time. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, it's been our pleasure to serve you.
Was that Galaxy Quest? Did you make a Galaxy Quest
Yeah,
reference?
Galaxy Quest.
That was amazing. Thank you. That took me a second.